Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible. And we're all excited about this one, Job
No.
39. One of my favorite ones to talk about. Peter, if you would share a link that I gave you earlier, we did a long, or I did a long discussion on this one, calling on two Bible experts who were, well, I don't want to, maybe not Bible experts, two extreme aficionados, I think would be a more appropriate way to put that. One of them was like a police detective, and both of these speakers had done a very long analyses on bits of this chapter, specifically referring to the character of Behemoth.
Well, that's chapter. We have chapter 40. That's where we talk about Behemoth. This chapter talks about different animals, but
Understood. But I mean, I would have expected that we're going to get to that. Are we only going to do one chapter today?
No. This one is.
No. I have to ask, Arn, is that police officer also where you found out that I'm not in the Epstein files? Just curious.
Yes,
I'm actually crossing my fingers about that one, Peter.
Everyone who is not in the Epstein files, congratulations. You have passed baseline as a human being.
Oh, shit.
See?
What?
What's the matter, Tomer?
Let me just real quick.
Are you in there?
He's double checking if he's in the Epstein files.
That's what? You would have been 12.
No, that's a different person. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Poor Tomer.
Why are we only seeing Garin?
Yeah. Well, Peter doesn't think the rest of us are pretty enough to look at.
That is
I know I'm not.
What do you
All right, we
think
got
I'm
a couple
here
of comments already. Shut up, Matt says, Aaron, if Bigfoot / Yeti existed, they don't, obviously, where would they fit in a cladogram?
That's kind of how we know they don't.
Well, I mean, there's a handful of options, but I mean, I can't just speculate about a mythical beastie. You know, it depends on what attributes we're going with.
Why don't you? Go ahead and speculate.
Give us 3 options, just brief options.
They would fall in the same clade as God, wouldn't it, Arn?
The biggest problem is the location. So if you're going with something that is, let's say, a robust Australopithecine or something, like Gigantopithecus would be way down in the Pongid lineage. So there's a wide range of things we could start with, but none of them would be in North America. So that's the biggest issue. Now, did the Asian Yeti? Okay, yeah, we could potentially have that, except that all of them were tropical. Even the hairiest ones, nobody's going to be able to manage living in Tibet. So anyway, next comment is Say10616 says Professor Dave made a video on Jay Dare. I really want Aaron to also take down this awful Orthobro, Theobro.
I think it's Jay Dyer, not Dare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm guessing like Orthodox Christian, like a Philbro, but a Theobro.
Okay. Well, it's the first time I'm hearing either name, so that'd be something I'd have to look into, I guess, when I have time.
And aren't this experience now in taking down the Orthodox? If they can stay on topic.
Yeah. Or get to the topic at some point. All right.
Sorry.
And shall we just dive into it then?
Yes, please.
Do you want to read the chapter with Behemoth in it?
You want to swap? Okay.
I'm saying, do you want to read the
I will
next
let
chapter?
you read. I will let you read Job 39.
Oh, okay.
I do want to hear you read about the Leviathan.
Yeah. So
okay.
I wasn't saying that I should read this one. I was saying you read the next one. And
yes, you don't want to read this one.
Do you want me to read it? Do you want Lawrence to read it? Who do you want to read it?
Yes, apparently Lilith wants to read it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, the Leviathan is pretty awesome, but I can definitely take a pot shot at God.
I like how both Lilith and Isaac just asked the question, and Aaron's like, "Oh, so you're recommending yourself then?"
We're such a decisive bunch.
Well, clearly, Lawrence wants to read.
There you go.
All right, I'm reading. Somebody's got to get us going.
Let the woman speak.
Thank you, Tomer.
Get on with it.
Job 39. Do you know when the mountain goats give birth in late spring? Do you watch when the doe bears her fawn? Why would I watch? That's creepy. Do you count the months until they bear? Do you know the time they give birth? They crouch down and bring forth their young. Their labor pains are ended. Their young thrive and grow strong in the wilds. They leave and do not return. David Attenborough would have told me more, but this is just God. He's doing his best. Who let the wild donkeys go free? Who untied his ropes? I'm guessing at least once it was a child being a shit. I gave him the wasteland.
I just want to point out that the JPS reading here is who sets the wild ass free. So yeah, it's you.
Oh, I was thinking it was who's that guy who wrote "Shake Your Tail Feather"?
Okay.
Sorry, I gave him the wasteland as his home because I'm so nice like that. The salt flats as his habitat. He laughs at the commotion in the town. He does not hear a driver's shout. He ranges the hills for his pasture and searches for any green thing. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? Will he stay by your manger at night? Can you hold him to the furrow with a harness until he tills the valleys behind you? Will you rely on him for his great strength? Yes, that's how we got all cows. Will you leave your heavy work to him? Can you trust him to bring in your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully, but they cannot compare with the pinions and feathers of the stork. She lays her eggs on the ground and lets them warm in the sand, unmindful that a foot may crush them, that some wild animals may trample them. She treats her young harshly, as if they were not hers. She cares not that her labor was in vain, for God did not endow her with wisdom or give her a share of good sense, because he's an asshole like that.
Yeah, we need to point out this is God's fault. This is God complaining about shit he could have fixed, a problem he caused, and he is admitting to it. This is God's fault.
Well, God made the ostrich stupid, so the ostrich is stupid. And see, that shows his power because he was a dick.
And this is all wrapped in a criticism of Job for questioning God. So
I mean, if nothing else, he's consistent.
Yeah, how can you, Job, explain why the ostrich is stupid?
I think we can I don't know if that goes under Darvo, but I'm pretty sure it's some square on Narcissist Bingo. Talk it out amongst yourselves. But yet of the ostrich, when she spreads her feathers to run, she laughs at horse and rider. She is very fast. Do you give the horse his strength or clothe his neck with a flowing mane? Do you make him leap like a locust, striking terror with his proud snorting? He paws fiercely, rejoicing in his strength, and charges into the fray. He laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. He does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against his side, along with the flashing spear and lance. In frenzied excitement, he eats up the ground. He cannot stand still when the trumpet sounds. At the blast of the trumpet, he snorts. Aha! He catches the scent of battle from afar, the shout of commanders and the battle cry. Does the hawk take flight by your wisdom and spread his wings towards the south? Does the eagle soar at your command and build his nest on high? He dwells on a cliff and stays there at night. A rocky crag is his stronghold. From there he seeks out his food. His eyes detect it from afar. His young ones feast on blood, and where the slain are, there is he.
Okay.
I get the feeling God likes the eagle.
Also, I have a question about this oxen at the beginning.
That's not an oxen.
A wild ox, not a regular ox. The
No,
wild oxen.
Wait, on verse 1?
No,
verse
not
9.
the very beginning, but
No. Yeah, I think Steiger's even
verse-
translates
wait.
as oryx.
9.
Yeah, so 9. Yeah, so yeah, the word is reim, and
Reim.
I mean the JPS takes it as wild ox, but most likely I think that it is a it is a wild ox, I would assume. Yeah, because that's what
I mean, I think
traditionals
Steiger's
identified.
even translates it as oryx.
Yeah, oryx.
Yeah.
Oryx.
Yeah, there's the very big ones that used to exist.
Yeah, though we do have Septuagint, which has unicorn.
Yeah,
And-
that's where I was going with that.
Aw,
Yeah.
that would have been so much more
Wait,
fun.
this
They
is
probably thought a rhino. No.
this yeah.
Greeks.
Aquila and Vulgate also went the rhinoceros, and then KJV also adapted to unicorn. But it is the most common interpretation is that this is the wild ox.
Which is a
Yeah.
little confusing because they call it a unicorn. Which
The translations call it a unicorn.
Hold on.
well,
Yeah, it seems that by the times of the
translation is-
Greeks,
the translation is going on the notion that it has one horn, right? That's why they call it that.
No, I mean there is no indication here with there is no mention of a horn here. There is no keren. So
See, I understood this years ago. I understood that the Latin name or the scientific name for the Eastern or the Indian rhinoceros is Rhinoceros unicornis. And when I read that, and I read that into Job 39, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense. They're talking about how this animal is huge and powerful and untamable. That's a better description of a rhinoceros than it is what people's normal concept of a unicorn, which is some like dainty little one-horned horse.
yeah.
Or a wild ox, which,
What-
there are.
The dainty
like,
little one-horned
buffalo
horse.
bison.
The image we normally have of a unicorn is pretty tame to begin with. You know, I mean,
Yep.
and it's not big, it's not powerful, it's not.
It's magically powerful.
It's
It's
like-
not like
Just it's like a symbol of purity and yet somehow of wisdom at the same time, which is kind of a contradiction.
Just
But-
Yeah, I
just
think
to be clear, guys. So while sure, like the word that is used, you could say literally means unicorn, but they're not thinking of the unicorns that you and I think of. It's just something with one horn.
Yeah.
Which is why ox is as a substantive. It would be with but one horn. That was used. The word was also used by Aristotle as well, a whole bunch. And it is, of course, taken by the Septuagint writers as Tomer already noted as a wild ox. But
So-
yeah, it's just something with one horn.
I think it's
used in
by
other
the time of-
places, and they're not referring to the horse with
But
one
the
horn
one-
that we
Yeah, I
see.
think it's a later idea. I think that's a much
one
later idea.
horn.
Mhm.
Is that a Latin word which would make it Vulgate era, or is that tracing back to the original Pseudo-Hebrew, the language that we're actually writing in?
Well,
'Cause
I
if
mean,
there's-
I think Tomer already made the note for the Hebrew, but the
Yeah, the
Septuagint
Hebrew
does
doesn't
use
apply.
monokeros, which I think would just be one horn because mono means one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm confused
So-
again. So you're saying the Hebrew also says it has one horn?
No, it doesn't. There is no indication in the Hebrew that it's of any horn. It just has re'em, which
I think what happened is that the Hebrew was writing about a wild ox, and by
Yeah.
the time we get to the Septuagint, the Greeks were like, they didn't know about wild oxen. They probably were extinct in
It
their era, mostly. So
it
in
is-
their head, it
sorry.
made sense rhino. rhinoceros, and they called the rhinoceros monoceros, one horn.
I don't know. That seems to be reaching. I would have thought that the aurochs that was mentioned before would still be in Greece long after there were no rhinos in Greece.
No,
Right,
but remember, the Greeks doing this work were at the Library of Alexandria, which is in Egypt, and definitely close enough to be familiar with Ethiopia and rhinos and big stompy things.
Yeah, it would have been an exotic animal that people knew about, but I think the aurochs went extinct in like
1600s.
Oh, okay. Well, so it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, the last
Really?
auroch was killed in captivity in sometime in the 1600s.
Oh, okay.
We are just the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just curious about where the whole notion of unicorns comes from. Is not even a mistranslation. It's just somebody decided at some point that I don't know what an ox is, so let's make up a mythical horse that has an orthicone horn growing out of its forehead.
Yes, Arn. See, that to me is probably a more interesting question. How the fuck did we get to a horse with a single horn?
Because they didn't know what a rhino was.
You know where part of that came from?
The Greeks knew what a rhino was, and then the Europeans were like, "What is monoceros? What is unicorn?" And then they saw narwhal tusks in the sea, and they were like, "Oh, maybe there's one horn."
No, it wasn't a narwhal tusk, although that's a fair guess. It was an orthicone fossil. The story that I read was that an orthicone fossil was misidentified by some Caesar, was just declared to be a horn that he just decided went on a horse's head, because sure, why not?
Like a shellfish?
I mean, horns of power. They did wear them as
imagine a 10-tentacled octopus kind of thing that lives or squid kind of thing that lives inside a long curled shell in a straight line.
Yes, you can imagine something.
Yeah.
Yes, you can imagine something with tentacles. I'm gonna do it.
Okay, no, this is not hentai.
The fossil doesn't have tentacles, I'm guessing. It's just the cone left, just the shell.
Yes, the tentacles are all gone. Please do not imagine Caesar with the tentacles. Okay. Oh, that would actually make
and thus we get a unicorn. Nobody having any idea what the fuck the previous article was talking about.
So what we have is, in the original writing, it's a giant, untamable ox. By the time it gets to Alexandria, someone's trying to describe what this is, but they haven't seen it. So they think of a wild, giant, horned animal that's like exotic, but they're dimly aware of. And they come up with rhino, which they call unicornus. And then the medievals get it with the Latin. And then they have a magical unicorn because pretty art magic shit.
Somebody commented that there was a Greek physician who described the unicorn, maybe he probably was talking about a rhino, as a wild ass as large as a horse with a single horn on its forehead.
As large as a horse, a rhino.
A rhino is way fucking bigger than a horse.
Yeah, but
I mean, maybe as tall at the shoulder. Like, if I try and describe a moose to someone who has no idea what it is, I think a deer, but it's the size of an elephant. It's not as thick as an elephant.
We're talking about people who described possibly baboons as humans with faces in their chests.
That's true.
Okay, fair enough.
We're also talking about people who oh my god, I forgot the fucking thing for it, but they had this crazy that's right. In order to perform like an abortion or something, you needed like 5 dead beetles or some shit like that. Hold on, I gotta look this up again. But I remember coming across this and I was like, what? That's crazy.
Okay. Right, and moving on then.
This is the true word of God, which is not open for discussion and has been preserved perfect in spirit by the action of the Holy Spirit. Just important for you to remember that.
And where did we come up with the idea that unicorns didn't make it onto the ark?
Because there aren't any, and God was already being a dick, so it worked.
You just have to look at how much we just make shit up when you don't know, right? When you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what this refers to. So you make
try
shit
and fill in the gaps, and you know, it's fine to hypothetically try and fill in the gaps and say maybe it fits together like this, but like remember that you made that up and you might in fact be incorrect. Like, we're all trying to figure shit out, but a hypothesis is not evidence.
Indeed. Okay, so I've got some more comments to read here. Let's see. Shut up, Matt says, Aaron, you know the unicorn is the heraldic sign for Scotland. Okay, so that's what the unicorn is. It's the true Scotsman.
But I think it was like the national animal of England is a lion, which don't live in England, and then the Scottish were like, okay, we'll just have a unicorn.
We don't have those either.
And then the Welsh said, hold my beer, and they chose a dragon.
Exactly.
I don't know how much beer was involved in the Welsh picking the dragon, but I'm gonna guess it was some amount.
And then Reimer's Braggery says, panel, doesn't seros mean tooth, serration, other than horn anyway?
Well, they're trying to say keros. No. It would mean horn, or something that it can refer to something that's shaped like a horn as well. So like if there's like a drinking vessel that's like
serrated means horn shaped.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I think serrated is. Maybe there's a difference in Latin and Greek there, because the Greek maybe keros means horn, but by the time you get to Latin, it's more like corn. No, like corner.
Cornucopia.
Okay. Well, so the thing is that would make kind of sense because it's in something that's shaped like a horn.
Yeah. I'm saying, but like rather than keros, I don't know if Latin keros has anything to do with horn. I can look it up. Serration.
Well, I have no idea, but either way, like I think even in Greek it was
Oh, it's Sarah. It means a saw. It's the Latin word.
Here's something. This might actually help. Even in Greek, it looks like there are some references. Even in like Kyrgyz. Okay, so pretty. So like in Attic, you have the word keros referring to a mountain peak. So really anything pointy, I suppose, at some point.
Okay, all right. Well, and I mean, you can stab someone with a horn. That is, or a antler, or
but it looks like in Latin there's a word with an S, serratus, which means like a saw.
Okay, so what is
like
this word? This Hebrew word? What is this animal that it's referring to? Oh, I know. Imagine a horse, but pointy.
Have you seen that like early fossil restoration where it's like a unicorn horn, the head of a horse, and then like two legs and a spinal cord, and that's it? It's like a weird tripod unicorn.
Oh my god.
Or bipedal unicorn.
Okay. Moving on.
Yes.
Yeah. First one.
So, Tomer, are we jumping over to the next chapter now?
Yeah. No. Stop gaslighting me.
So the first section is actually not about a wild ox, right? It's a wild goat, and about how like it's birth pangs and God is there to deal with the problems it created in the first place. But the Talmud goes a bit further, and it describes, and Rashi brings it down. It says the mountain goat, it hates its children and gives birth and lets the baby fall down the cliff. And God sends an eagle to swoop in and scoop up the baby and save it.
What the fuck?
And then for the hind, or the I guess it's like a different species of like wild sheep or whatever. Apparently, the birth canal is very narrow, and God sends a snake to bite something. Bite her womb is what they say, and if the snake would come a bit early or a bit late, then she would die.
Okay, this from the imaginations of people who said, okay, let's imagine a horse, but it has wings like a bird. Oh, and then instead of the head, you have the body of a woman, like from the waist up, and it's it's a horse with a woman's body, and it's got wings, and then out of the woman's forehead we have a horn. And that's a Unipega centaurus.
Okay, guys.
I don't know about you, but I'm aroused.
Tom has one of those in a little jar somewhere.
I suppose you don't need to take acid to make ancient, weird hentai shit by the name. Okay.
Yeah, fairies aren't a new thing. Just look at the ancient Egyptians.
No, actually, when we mentioned the Yeti and the Bigfoot earlier, I had to grab a thing, but there was a map. Someone looked at Bigfoot sightings in the U.S. and where they were, and they looked at they overlaid it with a map of how much furry activity was in a given area. There was correlation. There was significant correlation. So if you see a Yeti or a Bigfoot out in the woods, it's entirely possible it's just a furry. So don't shoot the people who are dressing up in weird costumes in the woods. It's just
or I can tell you from personal experience, it might be a long-haired hitchhiker with a fuzzy sweater.
That too.
And amazingly, Lilith doesn't know that story, and I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, Bruno Zeigert's
he's here in the room.
6379. Bruno Zeigert's 6379 offers $10 Californian and says, Aaron, was the police detective you talked about J. Warner Wallace? Peter, did you share that link?
Yes, I did at the start of the show.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the guy, but it's in the chat if you scroll up for it.
J. Warner Wallace is someone who used to have some professional credibility and burned it all lying for Christ. So the thing with you know what? I would love someday to have I would love someday to have a conversation with you about the logical techniques he abuses. Because he brought up an argument that basically completely misapplies this technique that cops and detectives actually do use when considering interview suspects. And the reason I know he misrepresented it so badly was because I learned it from law enforcement. So I didn't just start with the stupid, twisted, apologetic version. Because as it happens, some of the things that might be problematic when interviewing real life eyewitnesses, like copying each other's stories, in literature, if you're looking at literature of non-eyewitnesses writing from multiple sources, that's just called sourcing, not conspiracy to commit fraud. So, it just, that's that. I could do an entire hit piece on that, and I should. So we could do that sometime if you want to.
The other, when you have a list of bullet points, a complete list of bullet points for things you want to cover, we could do that.
Warner Wallace, I got it. All right,
okay.
I'll hit you up.
All right. And Tomar, are you going to quit holding up the show?
Yeah, of course. No, I love it. Okay. On verses 1 through 4, so I basically took each section and just commented on that because I didn't want to go into detail regarding specific verses because Behemoth. Okay, on verses 1 through 4, the ibex. In the Hebrew, it's Ya'alei Salah, literally mountain goats. Habel writes that in contrast to the lion and the raven of the preceding verse, the ibex and the hind are shy, elusive creatures of the mountains, and that their pattern of procreation is hidden from humans, who may be capable of controlling the breeding habits of domesticated beasts. He writes that God is depicted here as their unseen midwife, quote-unquote, though Clines writes that the fact that Job cannot do something does not imply that Yahweh does it. Here, it is a matter of Yahweh's knowing, yada, their giving birth, observing or marking, shamar, when they bear their kids, counting the months of their pregnancy, Sephar, and knowing the time of their delivery. And Hartley comments, quote, "The question put to Job is, do you know the time when the mountain goats give birth? Does anyone assist the females while they are giving birth, as a shepherd helps the members of his flock that are calving? The answer is that these animals complete their months of pregnancy without help from any human being. Nobody watches over them or protects them. The phrase count the months means that one compassionately cares for a mother during the days of her pregnancy. For the ibex, however, parturition, palach, takes place quickly and easily. She needs no helper. Soon her healthy fawns go their own way, never to return to their mother. It is implied that God himself mercifully looks after the welfare of the departed young."
And what relevance does this have in God's criticism of Job's lack of faith?
Well, you see, I'm big, you're small. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it. But extended edition.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like the writers couldn't imagine how wild animals can exist without help. They always seem to think that the tame animals are the originals and the wild ones are like escaped and like broken free from. And so like who's looking after them? Who's helping them? Oh, it must be some
Yeah, I mean, I think that
spiritual
does feed
babysitter.
into, think of the myth of Eden, the idea that man was the
Mm.
caretaker for the garden and
Right,
the
the
animals in
garden.
it. It does, there is an idea that, although not necessarily under like oversight, meticulous care, but that the original order was that man was to be the lord and caretaker of all the world and all the things in it, and sort of oversee. Though presumably God didn't expect him to go around to every type of animal as they were giving birth and like catch it. But who knows? God's weird. What do I know?
No, before the sin, before all the animals ate from the fruit, they gave birth without any pain. It was only afterwards that.
Oh, he wasn't just torturing human women? Because we do have a lot of pain because we went and developed giant heads.
Yeah.
I think the worst decision after leaving the sea.
Which is also why our infants are so pathetic.
Mhm.
Whereas, a giraffe is born and can stand up within an hour and start walking around. But we got to wait like a year.
Well,
for a
from an
human
evolutionary standpoint, we put all our eggs in the brain basket, and I'm going to be honest, we seem to have fucked that up. I feel like I'm living in idiocracy.
Hey, what if we, with this giant brain, they can't be born? Hey, how about the brain doesn't develop right away? Like you could be born and not have like practically any working brain at all. And then because we're going to do that, and it takes a long time for the brain to develop, your brain doesn't actually mature until like a decade after your boobs.
Yeah, that's fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, women's brains do mature earlier. It isn't just because we're pressured by society, although that's part of it too. Our brains do actually mature earlier than yours, which does not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
God's design is so clever. He made the creature with the most important brain be bipedal and have their brain at the top of their body so that they can easily fall down and hit it.
Yeah, and so that the brain can very easily be drawn to other heads. The Lord gave a man a penis and a brain and only enough blood to operate one at a time.
Okay. Yes. So verses 5 through 8, the onager, in Hebrew pere. Clines notes that in the Hebrew Bible, references to the onager allude to its quest for food, as we see in 24:5, Psalms 104:11, Jeremiah 14:6, its speed in Jeremiah 48:6, its independence in Hosea 8:9, and its avoidance of human society in Genesis 16:12, Jeremiah 2:24, and Daniel 5:21. In Assyrian culture, the fate of a violator of a treaty is to roam the desert like an onager, as was seen in the vassal treatise of Esarhaddon 64:19 through 21. Newsom writes that, quote, it stands for everything opposed to the world of human order and culture, end quote. A saying from the wisdom of Achikar exemplifies the stubborn independence of the onager, quote, he said to a wild ass, let me ride you and I will feed you. The wild ass replied, keep your food and spare me your riding, end quote. And Habel comments, quote, the expression set free in verse 5a is used in the Deuteronomic law code for setting a slave free in Deuteronomy 15:12-13. As Anderson rightly discerns, this poem seems to express a certain envy for the freedom of the ass. A similar envy is reflected in Job's dream about the freedom the sufferer can expect in the land of death, far from the oppressive presence of God, as we see in 3:17-19. The terminology common to this passage and 3:17-19 suggests that a deliberate ironic flashback is intended. Job envisaged Sheol as a place where the slave is free, chofshi, of his master, where prisoners, asirim from asar, are loosed from imprisoning bonds, moserot from asar, like those of the ass, and where the slave, like the ass, no longer hears the voice of the taskmaster, nogesh. For all Job's longings to be free from God as his oppressive God, compare 7:1-2, it is God who sets free in his own way and time. For the wild ass's freedom is being apart from human beings who enslave, not being apart from God. The knowing laugh of the wild ass mocks the ignorance of Job.
So we have God saying that he's going to let the wild ass go free, which means the wild ass wasn't always wild. It was previously domesticated, which is interesting. And then God says, I give you the wasteland as your home, the salt flats as your habitat. And you can wander around trying desperately to find any green thing. To which the wild ass said, yeah, thanks.
Well, it should note that Clines here comments that who set free and loose the onager? The answer is not Yahweh, but rather no one. It is not that the onager is conceived of as, quote, really a domestic ass, that patient drudge released from bondage, according to Rowley. It is an animal that by definition has not been tied with cords, and that therefore has never been loosed. The language is very reminiscent of that in 3:17-19 for the freedom enjoyed in Sheol, though there it is a case of being loosed from bonds.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the philosopher who, I cannot remember the name of the philosopher associated with this story, but they were sitting, like, renowned for being very wise and intelligent and a great ruler. Could have been Alexander the Great, but honestly, there might be 100 versions of this story. Came and said, come with me and be my advisor. I really need you. And he's like, no, I don't want to. He's like, you have to. I'm the emperor. I'm the king. I'm the ruler. I'm whatever. Well, yeah, but if you take me with you, against my will, then how can my wisdom serve you if you're going against my very philosophy of life? Like, it's just not going to work. He's like, I'll give you anything you want. Well, I want freedom. Well, if come with me and you'll have freedom. Okay, I choose to stay then, because just. And it literally, he just chose to stay sitting on a cliff drinking beer because he did not want to, or wine, because he didn't want to run around chasing greatness. And a lot of his wisdom came from the fact that he didn't care about any of that stuff. So wasn't much use to the ruler.
And consequently, he wasn't in the Epstein files either.
Huzzah! I still want to say I'm very proud of Carney. Because until this week, I didn't know there was a positive way to be mentioned in the Epstein files. He's not in any of the emails, but there's emails and people talk about people. And apparently they did talk about him because he ran the Bank of England during the COVID. And they talked about how he wasn't corrupt enough for them and he might screw up their shit. And they didn't like that. So anyone Epstein disapproves of, gold star.
Okay,
yeah,
on
to less depressing things like genocide.
Okay, on 9-12, the wild ox. In Hebrew, it's reim. Septuagint has unicorn, a reading adopted by KJV. However, Aquila and Vulgate render rhinoceros. Traditionals identified it with the re'em of Numbers 23-22, i.e. the wild ox, or aurochs, bos primigenius, an identification accepted by most modern commentators. Habel notes that in the Ugaritic Baal myth, the god hunts rum, i.e. buffalo, in the marshes of Lake Hule, and that hunting wild oxen was a favorite sport of Assyrian royalty. Clines notes that in the Hebrew Bible, the huge and dangerous horns of the aurochs are especially mentioned, as we see in Deuteronomy 33:17, Psalms 22:21, which is 22, and 92:10, which is 11. And in contrast to the domesticated ox, which is a byword for docility and obedience, the aurochs would not be willing or agreeable, ava, to slave for a human master, and so would not stand all night in a stall, and would not submit to be bound with ropes and set to work in plowing. He writes that the implied comparison between the wild ox and domesticated ox is striking, and even perhaps intended to be amusing. He further writes, quote, "This depiction is another site in the chapter where there is a danger of overinterpretation." Wybray remarks that, quote, "The freedom of the life of the wild ox from human servitude is clearly seen as one of Yahweh's most glorious achievements," end quote. Newsome, noting that domestication involves domination in verse 10, but also a relationship of trust in verses 11 and 12, deduces that, quote, "These categories, so evocative of Job's hierarchical and paternalistic moral world, break down when confronted with the wild ox," end quote. Sorry, not end quote. "The aurochs's utter alienness confounds Job's customary ways of thinking," end quote. And Anderson comments, quote, "Is there a hint that its creator might be more fearsome and unmanageable?" End quote. In fact, the aurochs figures here primarily, and perhaps exclusively, as a further demonstration of the almost unimaginable diversity of the world Yahweh has created.
I have to concede that much as I like the unicorn translation, I remember when I was reading through and I saw the Latin name for the Indian rhino, Rhinoceros unicornus. I'm like, that's it, and that makes perfect sense in the Job reading. But I have to concede on the Assyrian thing of hunting the aurochs, that is a much better fit. Just as we bred Pekingese from wolves, and we also bred Bessie the dairy cow from aurochs. So yeah, it in their original condition, they would have been much more like, say, an African Cape buffalo, not something you're going to milk.
I still want to see someone try and milk a bison.
Okay.
That's not like a dumb person, the kind of person who ignores the sign and tries to pet the fluffy meat tank. And
yeah.
Okay. On 13 through 18, the ostrich, in Hebrew renanim, which is a hapax. Clines notes that commentators generally identify it as the ostrich due to its piercing cries. The root ranan is understood to mean give a ringing cry, with rina referring to crying. The usual term for ostrich is ya'en, as we see in Lamentations 4:3 in Ketiv, and more often bat ya'ana, daughter of Ya'ana, allegedly because of the ostrich's habit of swallowing all kinds of objects. He also notes that many commentators delete verses 13 through 18 for several reasons, including that it is omitted from the Septuagint, and in it there are apparently no questions of the kinds typical of the first divine speech, and that God is referred to in the third person. He writes, however, that there are many passages in the Hebrew text missing in the Septuagint, perhaps due to the difficulties of the text. Moreover, verse 13b is the second half of a double question, with verse 13a may be understood as its first half, and God is referred to in the third person in the divine speeches also in 38, 41, 40 verses 2, 9, and 19. Habel notes that in popular lore, ostriches were viewed as heartless, stupid creatures without the natural instincts of other birds. Quote, "The ostrich has beauty but no sense," end quote, because she leaves her eggs unprotected against the heavy feet of humans and beasts, in verse 15, and is a cruel and heartless mother, in verse 16. He writes that there seems to be only one explanation for such stupidity. Quote, "In his design of the natural world, Yahweh withheld the normal portion of instinctive wisdom appropriate to flightless birds," as we see in verse 17. Thus, the ostrich is the exception which tests and interprets the rule. According to the design of eternal wisdom, the animate world of nature was imbued with skills, instincts, and drives which leave human beings nonplussed. Each creature apparently had an allocated portion, chelek, of natural discernment, binah, to enable procreation and preservation. The ostrich's lack of discernment and wisdom places her in the same category as Job, whom Yahweh challenged to demonstrate discernment in 38:4. Job had earlier queried the way that God had decreed portions, chelek, of fate from his exalted height above in 31:2. God replies by asserting that some creatures have no portion of wisdom. Job is apparently in the same category unless he can demonstrate otherwise.
I had a ratite living in my backyard for 3 years. One of my most beloved exotic pets ever. And I would walk this emu down a couple of blocks to the public park, and we would go running and touring the park and everything. We would do that twice a week. And having experienced this bird, I can tell you that because their brain is actually smaller than their eyeball, they are in fact quite dumb.
So there we go. Something correct in this chapter.
Look at that. It's I mean, I'm not one for phrenology, but yeah, smaller than eyeball is not generally the ideal size for brain.
To the extent that
proportional.
women who would paint their toenails and then go out into the park in sandals, right? The bird would never learn that those toenails are not edible berries. Never learn that. just keep biting your feet. Yeah.
Okay.
But, and then the other thing about it, removing the lines. I mean, I thought it was, absolutely verboten to, to remove bits of the Bible like this. But I'm wondering if in all of the unbelievable shit that goes on in the Bible, if somebody in Greece says they're talking about a bird that's 10 feet tall, we can't take that seriously.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue
where you start doubting.
I apologize. I have to apologize, Isaac. So many times in reviewing old scenes from this show, you begin to speak and then you don't get to finish. Somebody else says something. I've just noticed that as a trend. I'm sorry that happens.
No, it's fine. No, I was going to say, like, the only issue maybe with it being an ostrich is like verse 18 where it says, oh, she would soar high up and scoff at the thing. Like, you could translate it as like she would want to do that, but it's possible. I think there are some other opinions that say that it's not ostrich, but like a songbird or a bird with colorful feathers or something like that. But yeah, I think most people say ostrich.
Okay, so you won't believe that a 10-foot tall bird can fly, but you don't have a problem with a Pegasus. Okay.
Yes. Okay. 19 through 25. The horse. What?
Someone mentioned that maybe my volume is lower than everyone else. That could be my fault.
Okay. On 19 through 25, the horse. Habel describes the imagery of the horse here as suggesting, quote, a magnificent godlike figure, end quote, being like a warrior god poised for battle. The horse has the might of a god, its neck is adorned with thunder, its body quakes, its snort is full of majesty, etc. Habel argues that the action of the horse swallowing the earth seems to continue the imagery of the earth consumed by earthquakes. He writes that the horse, in his theophanic splendor, is like a mighty warrior. Clines, however, writes that a closer philological study does not support this estimation, for might is not only ascribed to gods, the horse's neck is more probably adorned with a mane than with thunder, and quaking does not refer to the movement of the earth, but also for the waving of fields of grain, in Psalm 72:16, etc. He writes that what is special about the war horse is its will, which drives its energy. Quote, humans may think that horses they use in battle are doing their bidding and are subservient to their needs. The poet knows differently that this creature acts from its own self, reaching ecstatic heights of pleasure in the midst of awful and lethal danger.
I mean, I've definitely heard the phrase eating up the ground just with like a racing horse, especially if they're, racing and you're looking at markers, they're eating up the distance. It's not Yeah, I can't imagine why anyone would take that literally, but this is the Bible. I should stop being surprised. If there's anything dumber than the Bible, it's the interpretations of the Bible.
Depends. Real depends.
Aaron, you're muted.
I was going to say, you don't forget the Quran.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Oh, and I forget, even the Quran, when we talk about dumb books, even the Quran has to bow to the Book of Mormon.
It's true. Joseph Smith is the dumbest. Good job, Joseph. You out-stupided.
Yeah, the very religion he was trying to emulate. We get a comment from Darth Maul. Maybe I'm not saying that right. Imagine Christianity got crushed by Rome early on and Islam never happened. What do you think the world would look like today? Better, worse, just different? I would have loved to have seen religion just be challenged on scientific basis early on. You know, like, show me your evidence. Oh, you don't have any? Then shut the fuck up and have a consensus. If you don't have any evidence, shut the fuck up. That would be the way to go. And if we'd done that 2,000 years ago, I think Carl Sagan said that our first starships would be returning right now and they would be bearing Greek symbols.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. And honestly, if we had kept a scientific mindset, but there are different paths that could have gone down. Religion isn't, it's part of what Christianity actually effectively kept spreading. Christianity was its exclusivity, its insistence on the Jewish attitude of the one God, and you can't have any other gods. All the other religions were like, cool, you got a new God, cool, that's your God. We'll just, pay our respects when you're in your city and go on about our business. But our God is from our area, and he's, we're chill. They were open and tolerant, but this is the paradox of tolerance. Tolerance must learn to be intolerant of intolerance, because otherwise intolerance will destroy all tolerance. You cannot tolerate intolerance or it will destroy you. And this is what Christianity did. It's the exclusivity that's the problem. It's calling any outside ideas blasphemous. That's the problem. If religion was just sort of a cultural traditional norm and there were myths associated and we didn't have to take it too seriously, like, whatever, fine, that's part of culture and history and shit, and everybody needs a festival now and again. Life is very dull if you don't have parties. But if we could have kept the rigid thought control, I mean, it's the bite model, right, for cults: belief control, information control, emotion control, thought control. That's what Christianity exerted, that so changed the ability of the human race to grow. And I mean, they destroyed, we found later, because they scraped off a lot of parchment of, the writings of these Greek philosophers and stuff, and then used it to print a bunch of hymnals and religious propaganda. And we found a system of calculus from, was it Sophocles, that we didn't know about. We had to wait, like,
Archimedes,
thank you. Sophocles was a totally different guy, wrong guy. But yeah, Archimedes, Mr. Do Not Disturb My Circles. How many centuries did we have to wait for Newton to go crazy in his attic and invent calculus because he needed it for a thing?
When we already had it so long ago. The whole idea behind science is to improve understanding, right? Not just to believe a thing. They don't want you to believe a thing. They want you to find out what's wrong with the notions you already have. Find the flaws in your current perspective and correct them. And this requires that we be able to weigh multiple hypotheses without necessarily committing to any of them, to see which ones are the best supported by the most reliable evidence. Religion does not want that. Ignore and reject everything, believe exactly what I tell you to because I told you to and not for any other reason. And blasphemy, heresy, and apostasy are all damnable crimes that you will be punished by death. You're right. In other words, I agree with you. This is what Christianity does. This is what Islam does. And Islam is based loosely on an emerging or an early version of Christianity. So I get it. Yeah, this is when people effectively stopped thinking.
Well, and it was the exclusivity of Judaism crossed with the insistence that we have to convert everybody.
Yeah.
The Jews were willing to be like all exclusive and we won't worship any other gods, but they would like keep it within their communities mostly. Like their nation was going to be all one God and fuck you all. But like they didn't spend their entire existence being like, we have to make every nation on earth worship our God all the time.
Imagine history, European history, if you like, over the last 2,000 years with some scholar suggesting, okay, well, I've heard your God hypothesis. Now let's consider the hypothesis that there is no God. Suggesting that would get you killed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Got some more comments to run through. My Unfinished Journey says, hail Aaron and panel, and hail the Aurochs. Well, the Oryx, that's a different animal. Aurochs. Aurochs is the
maybe he's referring to the Pokemon.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a Pokemon. I'm pretty sure there
is an Oryx with a similar name, but
yeah, it's really fun. The
all right,
evolution and the horns.
My Unfinished Sock, which makes me laugh more, says, don't milk a bison. Or do, it's your life. Either way, like and share the stream. This is referring to somebody in the chat that seemed to be milking a bull.
No, I made a comment about wanting to see someone who was really dumb try and pet or milk a bison, the kind of people who don't do that. That's how you get a Darwin Award.
They said they milked a bison and they had to work hard at it and they didn't get very much and it tasted terrible. And I'm like, are you sure it wasn't a bull?
And ever since you put that in chat, Arn, in the Netherlands, there's a famous glue which is called bison. And now I want to know who came up with that name and what they did before.
Okay, so Jojo Freelancer KUP says, how did Job know what God wants? How did he know how to obey God?
I think he's asking about like Noahide. Like where was the law given to people if these weren't Israelites? Like what's the like how did Job get the law? I guess is the idea.
That's another difference between the religious thought and the scientific or skeptical thought. How do you know that? Well, God told me to tell you to give me all of your money and also personal alone time with your children. God told me that you have to do this. Well, why didn't funny, God didn't mention any of that to me. How do you know God said that?
I think there is a concept, and please, Isaac, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a concept that there is an element to the law, that is written on our hearts that prior to the full 613 from Sinai, God, here's the law, that there were still righteous men who would worship God to the best of their ability. And yeah, they wouldn't like not boil a calf in its mother's milk or eschew mixed fabrics or any of the little nitpicky shit. But they still understood it as necessary to pursue justice and worship God.
I think the idea is that like God gave
virtue.
God spoke to Adam directly, God spoke to Noah directly, and therefore all the descendants of Noah would have had a tradition, an oral tradition of like, law and order and do not murder, like the sort of very basic stuff.
The ethical stuff.
And one of them would have been, one of the weird ones would have been like, don't eat a live animal, but apparently. But that's just like, I don't think they thought about it too much. I think that they developed the idea later that, the non-Jewish people still have like some basic laws.
Yeah, don't eat a live animal. It's for the same reason Monty Python made the joke about, it took 4 hours to bury a cat. 4 hours to bury a cat? Well, it wouldn't hold still.
All right, can we have your liver?
I'm not dead yet.
Don't worry, no one's ever survived having their liver taken out by me.
Tomer, help us.
With what?
Get on with it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
I got
One more
I'm sorry.
question.
I'm sorry. I got another comment. Trevor on 369 says, if I'd believe in leprechauns, where would I be? I guess at the end of the rainbow, waiting to receive a pot of gold. Belief in God is no different than believing in leprechauns. Agreed.
Rationally, no. The implications philosophically, there's some pretty intertwined ones, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Thomas, did you do the whole section about the wild horse?
Yes.
Is it possible that this
No.
section is talking about a taper?
No.
Oh my god, that's a reference. Oh my god. Oh
Joseph
no.
Smith every
No. Why do you hunt me back again with this? Ah.
What's more likely, a taper or a giant locust?
I would rather ride the tapir, just for the record.
Yeah.
Yes, the tapir is one of the few animals in the world that make me envious.
Man, I wish Mormons were real. Okay.
Thank
I was
you.
gonna say, like the Mormons that Joseph Smith wrote the West book. USA #1 again.
Yeah.
There you
That
go.
one.
It's
Yeah.
you are all very, very good at doing the worst. Yay.
Okay. Finally, 26 to 30, the hawk and the vulture. Habel comments, quote, from the majesty of a horse posed like a god of war, Yahweh's questions move to the mystery of birds who are the epitome of unfettered flight. The hawk and the eagle are the opposite of the
Epitome.
ostrich.
Epitome.
Fuck
Epitome.
you.
Yeah,
They
it's
soar
just-
afloat.
It's just, I used to pronounce it epitome too, so it's okay.
We've all
Yeah.
mispronounced English words when we were reading.
Yeah. Hermione.
Epitome. What the fuck is wrong with this language? Okay, they soar aloft. They make their nest inaccessible to predators. They are guided by wisdom and they care for their young by providing the blood of corpses. Once more, God challenges Job to reveal his wisdom and his capacity to exercise that wisdom. Neither Job's discernment, binah, nor his command, literally mouth, enables high-flying birds to soar aloft or choose their exalted nesting places. The reference to discernment, binah, in the final vignette of this speech forms an inclusio with the pivotal use of the word in 38:4. Thus, both the opening and closing units focus on the key question of Job's capacity to discern mysteries of the universe and by his wisdom to control their movements. The hawk and the eagle operate, however, by the instinctive wisdom planted within them, not by the manipulation of any mortal. There may be a hint of irony in the description of the eagle's eye searching out food and finding blood for its fledglings. Job had accused God of being a spy whose eagle eye placed Job under constant surveillance, as we see in 7, 8, and 20. He complained that God hunted him like prey in 69 and 1922, and called on the earth never to cover his blood until his integrity was vindicated in 1618. Ironically, the eagle's eye and the blood of the corpse are part of God's providential design, a design Job could not discern with his limited wisdom and knowledge. Compare 10, 13, and 14. Now. Guess who's talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus? It's the ancient Christians again. I missed that one. Yes. Okay, so in the second part of God's speech, the fathers especially notice an instructive and edifying content that appears to be a sort of preparation for the full Christian doctrine of the New Testament. In the pastures of eternal life, the faithful do not need doctors and doctrine, according to Gregory, God has left things out of reach in order that we may not admire our own wisdom when we reach our limits. According to Chrysostom. Hold on. Sorry, Christians make me allergic. The references to real or legendary animals assume essentially symbolic meanings. According to Chrysostom, Gregory, Philip, the priest, Ephraim, and Julian the Arian. The faithful soul is like the unicorn endowed with a single horn, symbolizing the ascent up the mountain with singleness of mind, according to Ephraim. The hypocrite is like the ostrich, whose soul lacks affection, that its young are abandoned, according to Gregory and Ephraim. Even in birds of prey, there is a certain reasonable wisdom that derives from the natural instinct living in each of them, according to Chrysostom. The eagle on the high rock prefigures Christ, according to Ephraim. The soul of the hypocrite never stays in the place where it fell, because after falling voluntarily, the weight of its evilness leads it to worse and worse actions. For when pride, the queen of sins, has fully possessed a conquered heart, she surrendered it immediately to the 7 principal sins, as if to some of her generals to lay it waste, according to Gregory. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Arn,
All
you
right,
have
so
to
then-
you have to read out the last thing I put in the chat.
Okay, so Elira the Free sent 50 Aran-Ra gift memberships.
Yes, she gave 50 people a membership.
That's huge. You say thank you, Arn.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Sorry, I was speechless for a moment. Yes.
That is valid. I would also be speechless.
Thank you
Elira
very
is
much.
indeed a good egg.
Thank you. Tomer, does that mean we are ready to move on to?
Yes, it is.
Yay! All right, I will jump right in it. Will the one who concedes with the Almighty correct him?
Wait. That's not that. Wait a minute.
What?
That's not the
I thought you
beginning.
What?
Wait, we're reading 40,
The
right?
Lord. Oh, I was
We're
gonna.
reading
Yeah.
40.
Does it start with the Lord said in reply to Job?
Yeah.
That's what I have. Yeah,
The Lord answered Job and said.
Hold on, let me change versions.
Yes.
Ah.
No, I don't think that there is a discernment in the Old Testament and Masoretic text here. Later on, there will be because.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. And it begins with one of my favorite words, moreover. The Lord answered Job and said, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. Then Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer. Yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind and said, and it would be nice if they told us that Job is talking to a tornado, but I don't think they made that explicitly clear. Gird up thy loins now like a man. I will demand of thee, and you will declare unto me. Wilt thou also disannul my judgment? Wilt thou condemn me, thou that mayest be righteous? Hast thou an arm like God, or canst thou thunder with a voice like him? Deck thyself now with majesty and excellency, and array thyself with glory and beauty. Cast abroad the rage of my wrath, and behold, every one who is proud and abase him. Look on every one that is proud and bring them low, and tread down the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together and bind their faces in secret. Then will I also confess unto thee that thine own right hand can save thee. Behold now the Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth grass like an ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. His bones are like strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He is the chief in the ways of God. He that made him can make his sword to approach him. Surely the mountains bring forth food, where the beasts of the field play. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and ferns. The shady trees cover him with their shadow. The willows of the brook compass him about. Behold, he drinketh up a river and hasteth not. He trusteth that he can draw up the Jordan into his mouth. He taketh it in with his eyes. His nose pierceth through snares.
So obviously that is a reference to the Bronchiosaurs.
Is it, wait.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be clear that this is, I think Tomer's definitely mentioned this before. This is more of like a composite creature. This
Wait,
is
is that
probably
the end of the chapter?
Brachiosaurus. Sorry, Brachiosaurus.
yeah.
Yes.
Is that the end of the chapter?
Yes, that's in the Old Testament. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
What
because
verse is
in the
that?
Masoretic text, in Masoretic text,
Yeah.
chapter 40 continues to 8 more verses, I think.
It goes all the way to 32.
In
Yes.
fairness, I think
Right,
Arn
yeah,
will
yeah.
want to read about Leviathan too. But yeah,
Mm.
Behemoth is just to be clear, the type of cedar that is found in the Middle East is different from the giant cedars that you find in the States. So the tail like a cedar is like bushy and whips around a lot is totally a thing. So
Well, the
Yeah,
thing,
but it's also
well,
like moves
it's
like a cedar.
yeah. I
yeah, I
mean,
know.
so
Well, we're not sure
the-
exactly what the word means, but it is a verb.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean the verb is yachafot. Znavokom eres. The yachafot is a kind of a weird statement to say of moving, I would assume. So there is a more accepted, I think, in the traditionals is that it hardens like a cedar, and so there comes the interpretation that the tail is the penis.
Oh, the other
Yes.
tail. Yeah,
Well,
I
Yes.
mean,
The
elephants have
interpretation
giant.
It does mention his stones.
Yes,
the
yes. Which,
interpretation that I've seen is that the tail, it is the actual tail that stiffens. And two commentators have shown video on this that when an elephant becomes agitated, their tail straightens out.
I don't think that it is an elephant. I don't think that
You're
Behemoth is
wrong.
an elephant.
No, I
I
think
think
I think it's a composite creature.
there's
Uh,
clearly
these
elements
are-
of it that come from the elephant. And they
Elephants-
do, in fact, have
elephants-
giant
elephants-
They're very big.
Mm.
They muscle
I,
around.
it could have
I
it
kinda doubt
it has elements from a whole bunch of creatures. That's why I'm
Yeah.
saying it's a composite creature.
Yeah,
like
doesn't
the
have
tail of
elements
I would
of
also
elephant.
assume
It
Just
has
that it is.
it has elements of elephants, and that's it, and nothing else.
Elephants.
Elements of elephants.
Well, I mean, the thing about it's like, I don't even know what it means. Like the sinews of his thighs are knit together, and
Testicles.
Stones.
Elephants are Afrotherians. Their
Right, so they have
testicles are
internal.
not they're not external. They're inside.
So does the hippopotamus.
Is it?
Yes.
That would be a bit of a surprise because hippopotamus
is.
are Laurasiatherians,
Yeah.
But
which
they
means
have.
they're Boreoeutherians, not.
Yeah.
But,
But
in
they are.
Afrotherians, they're all concealed. The testicles are internal.
Yeah, I
The
think-
hippo's
I think
testicles
there
are
are
internal.
other animals that have internal. Yeah.
Yes, they are internal.
Makes
And then looking at the nose, pierceth
Yeah.
snares.
No, that's not right, because it's not the nose that pierceth; it's the snare that pierces the nose.
the
And
nose.
we know that this was. I don't think it was a common approach to capture a hippo. We do know that records of attempts to capture a hippo, or at least hunt a hippo, but it basically just like one way to capture a hippo
Yeah.
by
Okay, so
javelin.
give me
I
your
would agree with
interpretation, because every version of this that I know of, his nose pierceth through snares.
His nose be pierced by hooks, not pierced. For me, at least, when I hear his nose pierceth through snares, it implies that the nose is the thing that pierces the snares. But but when we read the Hebrew,
the translation that bit, yeah.
But like when you read the Hebrew, it's bemokshim yinkov af.
Oh well, of course.
So it like.
The JPS has, can his nose be pierced by hooks?
Yes.
And that's said of Leviathan in the next verse, in the top of chapter 41. That, could you drop Leviathan with a fish hook?
But it should be noted
as like a mythical creature, and that's why I would agree with Lawrence that this seems to be, it is talking about like a mythical creature, or a I don't know what the other word is, like one of these creatures that have been, that have always existed.
I have to concede, because I mean there was a UPS delivery. My dogs were going crazy. I had to go deal with that for a moment, so I'm sorry about that. I missed where Lawrence found anything not elephant in this description.
Okay, so I mean, to be fair, I don't know that much about elephants, but when it comes to like the way that they're speaking of this, let's see. I think that I mean, obviously its bones are not bronze and its limbs are not iron. It's to be fair, it does say its limbs like bars of iron. But then the first part of the verse, its bones are tubes of bronze. But like the thing is, if we take a look at the ancient Near East and see, for example, the things on what's it called, Lamatsu or something like that.
Lamatsu.
Yeah, they're the composite creatures. Now, of course, they have the human faces, but they are but they have, depending on how you're looking at them, they have, they still have their 4 legs, but they also have like wings, and they, like, it's kind of like a mixture between like a lion and what's the closest thing? It's
there's 2. One's an ox and one is a lion. No?
That's a close one. But like the thing is, there are other ones. Like there are ones with like the super long necks, in some iconography,
like a giraffe.
Yeah, like a giraffe. Yeah.
Camelopardus.
But this was a very common thing in the ancient Near East, especially in Babylon. And after the exile, I'm absolutely sure they would love to do this kind of stuff. Now, in a bit, we're going to get to Leviathan, which is mostly taken from Canaanite stuff. From Low
I don't think we'll be able to do Leviathan, however.
Why not?
Because I haven't completed it.
Okay, well, you don't have to complete everything. You do
but
realize
people want my commentary, Lawrence.
People have also studied this stuff.
I don't fucking care. I need to finish the commentary, and I haven't finished it because I thought we were going to do only chapters 39 and 40, because then we're going to do chapters 41 and 42, which is lead to the conclusion of Job.
Yes, and it would be nice to potentially do that today.
Let me just run through this real quick, if I may.
Yeah.
Behold now the behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth grass as an ox, which sauropods would not eat grass. I just need to throw that out. But elephants do. Lo, now his strength is in his loins, and the force is in the navel of his belly. Elephants at least have navels, sauropods don't. So I need to make that declaration. He moveth his tail like a cedar. He moveth his tail like a cedar. Does not in any way imply that his tail is as big as a fucking tree. It moves like a cedar in the wind. Just turn it upside down, view it upside down, and that's what it is. Because all hoofed animals, of which elephants are included, they move their tails as like a fly swatter kind of a thing. And then The sinews of his stones are wrapped together because elephants are aphotheres. Their testicles are inside them. His bones are as strong as pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. 'Tis true. Like, and calcium technically is a metal. He is chief in the ways of God. Elephants are really fucking smart.
They are.
He that made
The
him
fir-
can make
the
his sword
first
to
of-
approach unto him. And this I've read is a reference to the tusks. And then surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of field play. Okay, yeah, obviously. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and ferns, something elephants can do and sauropods cannot. And then the shady trees cover him with their shadow, impossible for the giant sauropods that the people keep referring to. The willows of the brook encompass him about. Again, it's elephants, not sauropods. Beholdeth, he drinketh up a river and hasteth not. He trusteth that he can draw the Jordan into his mouth. That just means that he's big. And it's a reference to the way that he drinks. He taketh it in with his eyes. His nose pierceth through snares. His nose actually can go through snares. And if you're using hooks on him, then the nose is the target you're shooting for. Where
Please
the
don't
nose
do that
doesn't
to an
even
elephant.
exist on a sauropod.
I
Yeah, I
understand
think we
what
all
you're.
agree, not a sauropod.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah,
what
whatever
you're going
else it
for,
is
but
or isn't, it's not a fucking Dr. Dino dinosaur. Okay?
Yes.
It's not.
The most likely is going to be like a elephant, hippo, or an animal that is inspired by one or both of those creatures.
There is a and
yeah.
I think Clines notes also the crocodile, though the crocodile fits more with Leviathan. But
Yeah,
again, I think
yeah.
Leviathan is more of a mixed thing.
Yeah.
And I will agree. Leviathan is a mix of different influences. One of them clearly is a crocodile.
Oh yeah. Especially
when
one of those really big ones. Seriously, look at the pictures
And
online.
and traditional like Jewish commentary, like Talmud, like they always saw the behemoth as being this like there is only one of them. It's this mythical creature that God created at the beginning of time, and like there's a story of how like it survived the flood of Noah by clinging to the side of the ark, and then like with the giant on the other side.
I have to interpret it differently because the way that Job is written, it says, look at this example that everyone is familiar with as I describe it. So this is not a one-of-a-kind thing that we only know from mythology. This is like, no, look at that. This thing we all know from personal experience.
Well, I mean,
You're giving God too much credit with being rational.
Yeah,
I think people always
in the
claim
world
that
of the
mythological.
story, it's the mythological creature is a real creature, right?
I mean,
This
yeah,
is we're in the world of mythology in the story. So in that world, Job would have been familiar with this creature because everyone had seen it.
And then
Also,
the text lists the attributes that we're all supposed to be familiar with on the example that said, no, behold now.
No, that's the thing though. In order to describe this thing, it has to list other things it's familiar with, other things that people are familiar with. So like it compares it to an ox and compares part of it to a cedar and bronze and iron. It is always compared to these things that people know what they are, and I'm pretty sure they had a word for elephants too. So this is to me this would be a mythological creature that has like the most like the strongest parts of some of the other animals, and so some of the rest.
Yeah, I mean,
of
it's
the natural
the thing that it describes it as being like in the Jordan, and I don't think there were elephants in the Jordan, so it could be like
Well,
they
it
knew
depends
about.
on the name
I
you're
mean,
talking about. We know
Yeah.
that there were elephants in France at one point.
the Hebrew word
Leave
for
Babar out of this.
the Hebrew word for elephant is pil, and there are cognates of this word, like in Akkadian, which is pilu or piru. Assyrian also has pilu. In Arabic, it's fil. So, but we did but the earliest mention of elephant in Hebrew is, I think, it's Babylonian Talmud.
And they used the word pill there, so they probably took it from the
The-
Aramaic or whatever.
yeah, in
That's
Berachot 56b specifically.
And then some other comments here. Serial Tube 3 says, is there comparable, confirming, or corroborating period sources of anatomy in Greek?
No.
Okay.
What? Hold on.
I was more expecting.
I'm trying to understand.
Wait.
I'm trying to understand this. Hold on. Is there comparable
period sources, like at the time that this was written?
confirming? So is there like something comparable?
And
I mean,
contemporary.
Of it? Well, I mean, we have a whole bunch of Greek medical texts.
yeah,
I'm
they,
not
they
very
also
well
used to
versed
have,
in those.
like, ancient people used to do that. They would have books where they were like, here are the animals, and then they would also include like animals that we would consider mythological. What they call those books normally? There's like a word for it. Like however. But it's like it was quite. They seem to like conflate real animals and fake animals quite often. You know, which makes sense. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, in this country far away, people say that there are people with the heads of dogs, or in this country there are people with faces in their chests, and in this country there are people with one eye in the middle of their face." Well, I can't remember if that's medieval or not.
Sorry, I just had to get a drink.
Yeah, it definitely does come across like you can definitely read elephant into it, and it makes more sense than sauropod for sure.
Well,
But I think most of it is similar to a hippo, and hippos are closer. That's the only issue, because you've got hippos in Egypt, not that far away, and they're more likely to be seen in the water. And the bit about pierces with the nose, I think, is a mistranslation. It should be pierces the nose, and like Tomo was saying that there are the problem with what Tomo said. Tomo said that there are like texts that talk about people hunting hippos and using like a hook or like a ring in the nose sort of thing to
I
try and
can't
catch them.
imagine that would work. Those things have teeth the size of bowling balls. They do not give a
Apparently-
fuck. Or bowling
apparently
There
are
are
pins.
illustrations which
There are
show a
illustrations of
king.
people doing.
Yeah, specifically as Clines notes that there are many illustrations showing a king about to hurl a harpoon into the beast's mouth.
I still don't see it. I mean, maybe you could.
I have
interpret
12
that.
pages of commentary here. Maybe
Right, but the
they'll
thing is
they'll
that
help you.
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
You're telling me that you can interpret a hippo out of that. I don't.
I think
I don't
most
understand the
commentators.
stretch involved for that. I don't see a stretch at all for elephant. We could just be standing on a hill looking at elephants, and you be describing these, and I'm looking at them like, yep, you're right. There's all these things.
I mean, for me, the issue is the nose, because I wouldn't describe elephant's nose like this, because the usual thing that you see in an elephant is his long nose, but here there is no description of how long his nose is.
But there is a reference to a nose that a hippo doesn't have. A hippo has nostrils. It does not have a nose.
It doesn't. Well, the ancients thought that it had a nose. It's part of his mouth.
Well, the ancients should have opened their fucking eyes.
Okay, well, listen. If I
think the Hebrew word for
not
nose and
learned
nostril is
stuff
the same,
from
kind of.
like
and
I would just say,
out.
hold on, just a
Yeah.
second. Like in the fact that I don't know a lot about anatomy or like the biology of elephants and shit like that, I would have looked at an elephant and been like, oh, obviously that's a very long nose.
Yes.
So like I don't know.
It's also very agile and functions as a limb.
Yes.
But yeah, it's guys, I don't think we're gonna reach a solid conclusion. I can absolutely see this being a mythical character that took elements from elephants and other,
Took all the
exotic
elements
foreign
of elephants
creatures.
and nothing from anything else.
No, it's like rhinos and hippos are also very large and solid. But the point is, if you're imagining a mythical beast, sometimes you take something real and hype it up on steroids, like the St. George who slew the dragon, which was probably some sort of lizard in,
Yeah, I mean, humans
grew
could
into.
hunt elephants. Like this text implies that this is unhuntable. You can't do anything with it. People have tamed elephants. People have hunted elephants. So it could be they're talking about elephants, and the people who wrote
So
this just
it's the
stupid. They didn't know
mythological
that.
giant elephant that that stands that all the turtles all the way down to the elephants.
And I have to add to what Lilith just said. I did a presentation at Dragon Con about the origin of dragons, and St. George happened to be in Libya at the time. That was a monitor lizard. And the earliest depictions of it, you can tell it was a monitor lizard. The earliest depictions was from somebody who had actually seen a monitor lizard and knew how to depict them. Later
and then the
ones,
forked tongue.
yeah, the forked tongue, it ended up being where they put in too many forks, so they put in a whole bunch of forks, and then it ends up looking like fire.
Yeah, it's a big fish story.
Yep.
It's a big fish story. And
Yeah,
I
it's
could see developing a
cool.
behemoth out of a big fish story of an elephant, especially if you don't personally live next to elephants, but like you hear things. So anyway, point is,
Well, they're talking about like an elephant rhino, which I guess is a helifino.
Okay.
Oh, hippo elephant rhino, which is a helifino. Okay, anyway, Elira the Free sent 20 RN Raw gift memberships.
oh my God,
Still going. Thank you so much.
Elira, thank you.
And then Trevor 369 says, can Near Eastern culture shed light on the Hebrew Bible that could give us insights into why Job is written the way that it was, and why do some people think it's universal?
Well, to the first part of the question, yes. We use stuff from the ancient Near East all the time to help us understand the Bible. That's kind of the best way we can do it, honestly. And it's more than just through like comparative mythology. It's also through the whole bunch of, I guess you could call them secular cultural contexts, as secular as you could be back then. But yeah, we have the whole shit ton of that. We compare like laws stuff, laws too, right? So that is very, very helpful. And it can help us with Job, and people have certainly used that stuff to help us understand Job. But I guess I'm not sure what you mean by why do some people think, when you say why do some people think it's universal, what are you referring to? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
One last thing I should say that Aaron reminded me earlier to remember to say was the behemoth and also the wild ox that we spoke about before. They were kind of by early Jewish sages and stuff were conflated into the same creature, like a giant ox that was as big as a mountain, and people would climb on it and they didn't know. And I'm almost 100% sure that this version was adopted by Muslims, and they did get a little bit of confusion. They kind of switched the names because they also have this giant fish, giant ox, and there's also a giant bird, like the three realms, like the sea, the land, and the sky. And the thing is that they call the fish Bahamut, which is obviously connected to the Hebrew behemoth, which in Hebrew Behemoth. But the name of the ox is actually possibly, I can't remember exactly the word, but it is possible that it comes from the Hebrew word Leviathan or Leviathan.
No,
So they
the
literally just
ox
switch
that's
the
as
names
big as a
around.
mountain is blue, and its name is Babe.
I was gonna say the Americans stole that one too.
Yes, it's interesting because that we don't really have like Jewish picture like paintings and stuff of like Leviathan and Behemoth like that go back that far, but there are Muslim images, paintings, illustrated manuscripts that have this fish with an ox on top of it, with a bird on top of it, and it's tagged like Behemoth. I can't remember the word. The word for like the fish, the ox, I mean, is like Kuyuta, which could be related to Hebrew Leviathan. So they
Oh, how
switched
I
names
would
around.
love to go back in time to
Mm.
find the authors of the various parts of the Bible and have an illustrator depict what they're describing.
That would be fantastic.
So that we
But-
have the hippo, elephant, rhino, the helephino, and we have the Unipegacentarus.
I think it's important to remember we are trying to reconstruct something that and ideas that have gone through many iterations and then have had later interpretations layered onto them that we have heard but are not necessarily sourced from the text itself. But even prior to that, you have ideas that have grown over time. The way I came to understand this, do you remember when Snopes first started? Snopes is a fact-checking website, and conservatives always try and discredit them. That's how you know they're good. But what they started with were those emails that would get passed around. The chain letters. You used to have real chain letters too. They would all have stories of, if you pass this on and 4 days you'll have great luck, and this happened and somebody didn't, and and then they died in a horrible accident, and then somebody else did, and then they got $1 million and 6 puppies the next day. And they traced back, but then there were a bunch of other fear-mongering ones, variety of things. They traced back to figure out, how did we get to this? Like, yeah, okay, the story isn't authentic, but what kind of root was there to the story? And often there was nothing much substantial they could trace it to. Occasionally there were a few different things that and then it just sort of grew on its own, replicated. Memes evolve on their own track, and it has nothing to do with reality. And that understanding that process in that comparatively small way really helped me to understand that the same process on a much larger scale goes on with myths and stories and pseudo histories and alternate universe built up, around historical figures. And yeah, it's the same things. People are people, and people are messy, and they do not keep track of all the little changes through time.
Yeah, and so the medieval depictions of the unicorn show a horse about the size and dimensions of a goat, but it is a horse, and it has that one straightened, curly, twisted horn on its nose, and we got that somehow from an aurochs.
Yeah, well, again, it's a long path. It's a long path of people, of telephone. That game we all played as kids, just telephone. And then the next thing
I definitely remember seeing like goat features in like the earliest depictions of like European unicorns. I can't remember if they have beards or like hair from the goat.
I think they had split hooves though. Some of them.
Maybe goat hoofs or something.
But they did have the fluff on the legs. Why they had shaggy, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like bell-bottom feet.
Arn, I have to say, you've read how God describes the earth. Are you surprised that he can't describe an elephant or a hippo?
Not at all, actually. Elira the Free says, I haven't been able to support Arn for the past year, and now I finally can again. It's the least I can do. Thank you for that enormously. I really do need all the help I can get. There was a time when the way I have to put it now is that the way things are now, I think I'm the same place as most everybody else, where we're working harder, faster, and longer, but making less and paying more. So that's a hell of a thing. I mean, I just had a flat tire on my motorcycle, and it cost $1,800 to change a tire. So,
whoa,
fuck.
By the way, Arn, she has said in chat it's pronounced Elira. So.
Oh, fuck. Thank you. All right, and then and Antona, am I reading that? Antona 1631 says, gotta go. Thanks for all you do, Aaron. I found you many years ago, and you are a huge reason why I am free now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's enormous. I'm sorry you weren't here to hear me read that, but thank you so much for that. And then the atheist carpenter says, it must have been written before the events in Kipling's How Did the Elephant Got Its Trunk when when it had such a much smaller nose.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Thanks for that too. All right.
That explains
Tomer.
it.
Yes. Okay, so we'll start with verses 1 and 2. Habel notes that Yahweh's response has an ironic but not vitriolic tone. Job is the one who demanded a lawsuit, Riv, with his God in 9.3, and called him his adversary at law, Ish Riv, in 31.35. Yahweh acknowledges that Job is a hero with a lawsuit who seeks to take the matter of his integrity to court. Yahweh challenges Job to correct his presentation of the mysteries of wisdom, which characterize the design of the universe. Job insisted that on arranging God to argue a legal case, Yachach, in 13.3 and 15, Yahweh again recognizes that Job is the one seeking to bring God to court. But before he will consider Job's protest of innocence, Job must come to terms with his accusation that God's governance of earth is arbitrary and chaotic. He must prove his capacity to understand the way the universe is governed before he will come before Job as an equal in court.
Yeah.
On verses 3 through 5, Clines comments, quote, "It is striking that Job does not capitulate against Wiser. He does not withdraw a word he has said. He does not abandon his case. He does not admit that God is in the right or that he is in the wrong. He does not confess his sins or apologize for what he has said. He only announces that he will not reiterate his case. And that means that his words remain spoken. His criticism of God is still in force. His sense of injustice is as great as ever. He is still sticking to his guns, quote unquote, according to Anderson, even if it is going too far to see defiance here, as Good suggests, or even a reiterated complaint that God has still not answered his accusations. It is more than doubtful that this is the mark of a dawning recognition in Job that Yahweh is right, a gradual discovery of his place in the universe, according to Terian, quote, a dogged submission to authority, a sad acceptance of the inevitable, end quote, or even, quote, the silence of satisfaction mingled with awe, end quote, Strachan quoting T.K. Chain. Carl Jung perceptively remarked, quote, guileless as Job's speech sounds, it could just as well be equivocal, end quote. And Anderson is probably right that, quote, Job's reply is somewhat evasive, though not feigning submission as David Robertson, and not at all a satisfactory end to the matter, end quote. Wilson, too, rightly recognizes that Job both refuses to press his case or to withdraw it, depicting Job's refusal to speak as the biblical equivalent of taking the fifth. The second divine speech will be by no means superfluous.
You know, it's interesting. I'm sure we've all had the experience of speaking to a bully who's gotten really angry because we said something they didn't like, usually because it was true. You can argue with them. Or you can retreat and fawn and say, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, if you think your life is in danger. But I have found that they do not know what to do when you're simply silent and stand there. And you don't take your words back, but you don't keep pushing. So then they have all of the... It's actually a reasonably good technique for dealing with bullies. And God is apparently a bully here, so...
On verse 8, what does Yahweh refer to in my justice, mishpati? Klein notes that elsewhere, mishpat refers to an act of judgment, decision, or else justice as an abstract concept. But it is unclear what Yahweh's judgment or justice is in this setting. More likely is that it means his cause in the legal sense, i.e. his case under judgment, or perhaps his legal right. He writes that conceivably it is his ordinance, the order he has established for the world, but that sense would not form a good parallel with the legal language of the second colon. Hartley comments, quote, it is important to observe that Yahweh does not accuse Job of any specific sin, thereby agreeing that Job has lived a righteous life. Nevertheless, if the relationship between himself and his servant is to be restored, Job's self-righteous attitude must be altered, and his complaint against God's just governance of the world must be corrected. In his avowal of innocence, Job places himself in danger of trusting proudly in his own righteous deeds, and in his complaints he seems to make himself appear more righteous than God. Pride is a treacherous attitude, especially when it arises from adherence to a correct position. One who glories in his good deeds is easily tempted to think of himself more highly than he ought. Pride distorts his perspective. While Job has the right to complain to God about his misfortune, he is now facing the peril of not assenting to God's purpose for him. On verses 9 and 10, Habel comments, quote, Job is challenged to match the theophanic splendor of El as he thunders across the heavens. Compare Psalms 29:3. Job had accused God of attacking him with the weapons and anger of El Gibor, El the mighty warrior, in 16:9-14. Now Yahweh turns the tables on Job. Quote, if you think you are the formidable foe whom El has supposedly attacked, end quote, he retorts, quote, then demonstrate that you can match El's glory, end quote. For the moment, the question of Job's innocence fades before this challenge to his authority and the power of his arm. Elsewhere, the arm, Zeroah, of God is a symbol of his redemptive might and just rule, as we see in Exodus 15:16 and Psalms 89:14, which is 13. The arm of the friends had proven powerless to save Job in 26:2. Now Job is challenged to prove that his own arm is stronger than theirs. He is to demonstrate his authority through his voice. Earlier, Elihu had acclaimed the spectacular majesty of God's thundering voice in 37:1-7. According to Elihu, that voice controls the heavens and terrifies the inhabitants of earth. If Job could match El's voice, he could exercise a similar control over the cosmos. Compare 38:12, 34:35, and Psalms 29. On verse 11, Clines notes that the ironic language continues. Bringing low the haughty is a divine task, while the idea of looking ra'ah upon the proud may also suggest that Job is being invited to adopt a divine perspective. Job complained that the wicked go unpunished, as we see in 21:30 and 24:1-17. Why, asks Yahweh, does he not take in hand their punishment himself? He quotes from Stran, quote, the irony implies that this, after all, may not be the highest and wisest mode of procedure. He who finds a place in his world, even for the birds and beasts of prey, does not treat down the wicked where they stand, as the old theory of moral retribution acquired Yahweh to do, and yet Yahweh may be none the less just. He does not act like a petty human prince who decrees the instant execution of all his enemies. God's retributive justice is slower in its action. May it not be because it takes so much longer views and works for so much higher ends. Lilith, you
muted. Thank you. Yes, as a much wiser voice put it, some who die, some who live, many who live deserve death. Some who die deserve life. Can you give it to them?
Frodo?
Do not be too quick to deal out death and judgment. Even the very wise cannot see all ends.
Gollum still has some part yet to play.
Have you rewatched those movies? Every single frame is an art piece. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Although toward the end, they do start to get a little too video gamey with their visuals, especially when they get into The Hobbit.
Oh no, The Hobbit. I'm not talking about The Hobbit. I'm talking about the OG trilogy. The Hobbit.
Yeah.
They went way too much into the CGI on that one.
Yep.
But the original Lord of the Rings, every frame is art.
Okay, Tomer.
Yes. On 13 and 14, Clines notes that it is somewhat ironic that Yahweh imagines himself being the first to admit that Job has brought himself salvation. Although I will praise you is a phrase frequently used in Psalms to address God, as we see in 18:49, which is 50, 30:12, which is 13, and 35:18, God never praises anyone. Here it is the right hand that saves, as also seen in Exodus 15:6, Psalms 26, which is 7, 44:3, which is 4, etc. Habel writes that the verb yasha has the connotation of deliver from evil, death, or disaster, and gain victory over an adversary, as we see in Judges 7:2 and 1 Samuel 25:33. God is Job's opponent in a lawsuit in 27:7. The question is whether Job, as ruler with perfect retributive justice, can win against God, his adversary. Whether Job confronts God in court or combat, both assume the validity of the challenge model. If Job chooses this model, God will continue to be his adversary and Satan instead of his creator and friend. Habel also notes Brenner's opinion that this is a partial admission of divine failure to remove evil. He writes, however, that the focus is on how the world is governed and not on God's weakness. If Job and his friends believe rules should work by retributive justice and immediate punishment, then they must show how that could be done. If Job can actually rule the cosmos that way, then God will recognize him as victor.
It's important to note what Tomer just said here, that if you are an adversary of God, or a little more generally, you are an adversary of the idea of God that is being promoted by the clergy, then you will become a Satan.
We're all Satan.
Hail Satan, hail thyself.
Hail Satan, indeed. Where did Lawrence and Isaac go? Is Lawrence having technical issues again?
They were scared off by a ravaging Helifino.
Yeah, Lawrence dropped off.
Oh, he must be having technical issues again. Hopefully the cats didn't eat his router or something.
I have a cat that insists on getting on my table, even though I constantly throw the cat off. But the way that it gets there is by jumping on my computer and hitting and projecting itself off the power button.
Yeah, you might want to build an easier route so that will not be the place it jumps from. I'm just saying, make better pathways.
I'm busy. I'm typing away, and then suddenly black screen.
It's a cat.
Yeah, thanks, cat.
The cat is coming up. Give it a better way. That's all I'm saying.
Get it a better access to the restricted area. Sure.
Yes. That doesn't turn off your computer mid-work.
Okay, now, 15 through 24. The description of Behemoth has led commentators to identify the creature described. There are three general interpretations. One, the creature is entirely mythological. This view is shared by Gunkel, Pope, and Newsom, who regarded the behemoth as essentially a mythological creature, even if modeled after the hippopotamus. Seow describes both the behemoth and Leviathan as, quote, two creatures of legendary fame and mythic proportions, end quote, and their descriptions as, quote, fantastical of the mythical monsters, end quote. 2, the creature is a real animal, with various commentators identifying it with the hippo, as will later be shown, elephant, according to Thomas Aquinas, Ibn Ezra in the names of others, though he dismisses this, the crocodile, according to J.R. Driver, wild buffalo in Talmud Bava Batra 74b, Ditrani, B. Courier with Hartley and Newsom open to the suggestion, dolphin, according to B.D. Eerdmans, Oryx, according to Rashbam, a general name for all beasts, as we see in Septuagint and Targum, which read beasts, Nachmanides, and Tur-Sinai, or an otherwise unspecified animal, according to Ibn Ezra, Gersonides, Kimchi, and Hakham. 3, the creature is a combination of both real and mythological elements. Habel takes Behemoth as a monster that Yahweh overcame and controlled. Brennan Breed, in EBR Online on Behemoth, writes that the Behemoth is a collage of mythological and natural sources portraying a primordial monster, whose importance derives from its penultimate position in God's ambiguous speech. Clines notes that Behemoth has often been figured as the personification of evil, with existing depictions of the devil riding a behemoth in Liber Floridus by Lambert of St. Omer, and Behemoth and Leviathan depicted as a single androgynous monster, representing sensuality and fertility in the Patmos manuscript of Job. Breed notes that Origen associated Behemoth with the devil, relying on the Septuagint's interpretation of both animals as a dragon associated with the netherworld. Clines writes that most scholars identified both the Behemoth and Leviathan as real creatures, though their descriptions are literary and not necessarily realistic. The most common identification given to the Behemoth is the hippopotamus, an identification first given by Samuel Bocart. Clines notes several characteristics of the behemoth which coincide with the hippo. They are both herbivorous, amphibious, remarkable for the strength of their body, with solid bones. They live in swamps, among reeds, and seek shade. However, there is no mention of the hippo's huge mouth, its terrifying feet, and the tail's description is not exact.
Not exact, not remote.
Well, it depends on how you interpret the word yachapots.
Are you referring to the word for movement? Moveth his tail like a... Okay, well, on that, I will concede that part makes sense. Although most of the rest of these interpretations are contradicted by the one line that it is chief in the ways of God.
I will get to that.
The way that these people describe God and their religion being chief in the ways of God does not mean in any sense that this is something that Yahweh both created and then had to overcome. I would have to interpret this as intelligence, an intelligence that is immediately evident in elephants, but not so apparent in hippos.
I did see one interpretation of the first in the ways of God, as in like he created it first.
Yeah,
like the ways of God is referring to like the works of God, like what he first of the things that he did.
Yeah, the first
in
of
creation.
the great acts of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to make something. It's going to be this big, and it's got a giant python growing out of its face, and it's got two ridiculously huge fucking teeth. It's so big it can't even eat. And then all the other animals, I'll just make all of them smaller and less impressive than that one. And I give it a human level intelligence too. No, the other ones have to be dumb.
Once we'll get to the verse 19, then I'll elaborate on this.
When you get into these like weird stories about these crazy animals, like I guess the people wrote them, it made God seem awesome, but from a modern perspective, it seems a bit silly. Like, oh, God created two leviathans, and they were so big that God had to just kill the female, because otherwise, if these two fish were to mate, it would destroy the world.
I suspect we're not going to get to leviathans today, but I am looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've started with verse 15 about behemoth. The word behemoth is the plural of beasts, behemah. Thus, Septuagint and Targum render beasts. Clines notes that it may also mean plural of majesty, i.e., an intensive plural, signifying the supreme beast or the enormous beast. He also notes that Richter, following G.R. Driver, proposed to amend Reshit Behemoth Emsach, the first of beasts, the crocodile, with Emsach, crocodile, being a new proposed addition to the Hebrew vocabulary, cognate with Egyptian Masach and Coptic Emsach. He calls this proposal interesting but far-fetched. He also notes that an alternative etymology, that it is the Egyptian Pe-ich-mu, the ox of the water, i.e. the hippo. This view is taken by Dum, Horscher, and Oxford's English Dictionary. However, most scholars write that no such word existed in Egyptian.
Interesting. So they're trying to say that there's a word missing, because the word behemoth is a plural. It can't be referring to an individual animal. It must be saying like the animal known as something, and then that word disappeared. Okay.
Yes.
But we know, for example, that the Bible does use the plural of majesty for at least for one other word, which is Elohim. Elohim is a plural, but it's used in a singular way.
Yes.
I do like how Rashi says prepared for the future.
For behemoth.
For behemoth, prepared for the future.
What
does that mean?
Verse?
On
I can
verse
give
15.
you this context. I think it's
15.
referring to the verses before, because maybe not. Yeah, I can't remember. There is something about that. Because with the fish, it's like, the Leviathan, there's two of them. One is salted for the future, and the other one will be slaughtered in the future. But I don't know where. I don't think I've ever seen the idea that Behemoth was also going to be slaughtered and fed to the righteous, but maybe it is a thing.
So God killed one of the two Leviathan and put it in a salted barrel, and now the other one Okay,
He's probably
sure.
I'm sure he's got a storehouse of salt somewhere in the
Why
sky.
not?
Okay, on that same verse, which I made along with you. In the Masoretic text reads, Asher asiti imach. The phrase Asher asiti, which I made, does not appear in Septuagint, which reads, you are familiar with the monsters. Thus, many commentators like Dom, Strand, Dom, Forer, etc. delete this phrase. Hartley, however, notes that Gordis retains it, interpreting it as a break in the metrical pattern designed to capture the reader's attention. Habel notes that in the Apocalypse of Baruch, 29:4, Leviathan and Behemoth were created on the fifth day and apparently identified with the great sea monsters, Taninim, created on that day. He writes that the expression, I made along with you, suggests that the poet may have had the sixth day in mind, when God made land animals or beasts, Behemoth, along with human beings, an interpretation suggested by Ditrani. He also adds that the idiom implies that Job and Behemoth are somehow linked together with a common destiny. He notes that J.V. Kinner Wilson suggested reading, which I have made with thy help, and suggests that this joint creation called Behemoth was a clumsy abnormality caused by Job's errors. Habel, however, writes that Job is not challenged to create like El, but to rule and suppress evil with an arm like El. Furthermore, why should Job take up the challenge to create an animal monster when his complaint was that God has treated him as if he were such a monster in 7:12?
Who is this guy saying this?
Habel.
Okay, I just want to log this name because this is of all the dumb commentaries.
Wait, which commentary?
No,
are you
he
specifying?
seems to be responding to existing ideas in his time that were in fact very dumb.
Wasn't he talking about? Didn't he just say Baruch?
Baruch, Apocalypse of Baruch. Yes.
Yeah.
Habel. Yes.
Yeah. So the scholar's citing a different ancient work.
Yes, Apocalypse of Baruch.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that correction.
Habel is from when? He's relatively recent, no?
If Lawrence hadn't corrected my misunderstanding of what I'd just heard, then I would have logged Habel as an idiot.
No, Habel's commentary is really good.
Yeah, it's good.
I think he wrote it in like the 80s.
85.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 80s. Okay.
Yeah, it's a solid commentary.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes. Okay. Which feeds on grass like an ox. Clines notes that the hippo only eats grass and aquatic plants and can consume over 100 pounds of grass in a single night's grazing. Herodotus noted the similarity between the hippo and the ox in History 271, and Pliny that it feeds on crops and has the same kind of hoof as the ox in Natural History 839. NEB reads, who devours cattle as if they were grass, following G.R. Driver's reading Kachatzir Bakar Yochal, which Clines takes as a purely conjectural emendation on the basis that, unlike the hippo, the crocodile is carnivorous. He writes, however, that crocodiles do not eat cattle.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do, but they do not graze on grass, like was earlier described.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still at a loss. I'm still at a loss to think about how does anybody read Behemoth and think hippo?
Well, I have more.
Okay.
60. Somebody else wanted to comment, or?
Yeah.
Okay. On 16, several commentators take this verse as referring to the behemoth's virility and sexual prowess. Thus, Rashi took motnav.
Because when I think of sexy, I think of a hippo.
Hold on. Rashi took motnav, loins, as the behemoth's testicles, which are squashed and concealed, and have not been completely torn off. The word for shrir, muscle, in the muscle of his belly, shrirei bitno, is generally taken by early translations and traditionals to refer to the navel and the area around it. Based on Song 7:3, your navel, sherarecha, is like a round goblet. Clines notes that Wolfers takes the hippo's strength in its loin as implying that it concentrates or wastes its strength in reproduction, reading shrir as genitals. Clines, however, retains reading motnav, noting that the strength of the hippo is legendary. To move a body mass of up to 7,000 pounds up muddy riverbanks requires an enormous musculature.
Yeah, that's why
Talking
they
about-
harnessed all those hippos to carry lumber. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's elephants with the legendary strength, not hippos.
You do realize that hippos are dangerous, right?
Hippos
Oh,
are
I
incredibly
realize that
powerful.
hippos are dangerous.
And they are
Not
massive.
as dangerous as an elephant, but yeah, they're dangerous.
But they are massive.
Actually, I think
not
they are
as
more.
massive as
Aren't
an
they
elephant. who is
technically more
cheap in the
dangerous?
ways of
Yes,
God.
They are more dangerous than an
Yes, they are
elephant.
more dangerous than elephants.
I do realize that
They
hippos
kill
kill
more.
more people. I will concede that. The hippos, I think in all of Africa, the most people die from all the African megafauna is by hippopotamus. And I think a large reason for that is that idiots think that, oh, look, that's cute. Because it kind of are.
Oh, but when you hunt them down, yeah, that's cute.
Arn, or it's because the hippos are taking revenge on being called Behemoth.
No,
we don't know.
Seriously, people look at hippos and they think, oh, it's like that scene in Jurassic Park where they're being they're in the tree and there's all these brachiosaurs right there, and the heads of these brachiosaurs are like the size of a whole human body, just the head, and the guy says, "Don't worry, they're herbivorous, right? So not dangerous." And I'm thinking, okay, that means the aurochs is not dangerous. Rhinoceros are not dangerous. Cape buffalo are not dangerous. Hippopotamus are not dangerous.
We have fossils. We have fossils of little dinosaurs that fell into the footstep of a brachiopod or sauropod of some sort, and like it was muddy and they like drowned in the mud. And that's how they died.
Look, it's as someone who in Canada, we actually have to be reasonably educated about animals because we have a lot of them. Yeah, we have mountain lions and grizzly bears and moose. And let me tell you something. The reason we all chose the bear is not just for the reasons you think. Like, bears are omnivores, they are hunters. You think the animal that wants to eat you is the more dangerous one, but it's not. Every animal that hunts is they have to have at least enough intelligence on some level to do a risk analysis when it comes to fighting. There is a cost benefit analysis. They are struggling. Is this struggle going to potentially risk injury? Should I just live to hunt again, fight again? Prey animals don't work like that. Their brain, everything is all or nothing. If they decide you are a threat in any sense, there is no second guessing. It will just fight you like it is fighting for its life. That is it's a full on-off switch.
I don't think that's correct because I have seen like mountain lions go up against somebody and then you can bluff them down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The mountain lion is a predator. You can bluff them down because predators think about whether or not the fight is worth it.
Okay,
Prey doesn't.
It's a fair comparison when we talk about moose to hippo, because again, people are enamored with moose. They're kind of cute. There's something about them. There's adorable, but they will fucking kill you.
They will indeed.
Oh,
of all the megafauna in North America, that's I think the one that kills the most is deer in general and moose specifically.
Well, a deer will run out in front of your car and you might live, depending on
deer killing on purpose.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
there's a lot of people that get killed by deer.
There's a lot of people that get killed by hitting moose in cars. It doesn't matter what you are driving. In a car.
I mean, walking around and a deer attacks you. But moose or meese, when they attack, well, now you've got something that's 7 feet tall at the shoulder, and you had no idea how big a moose was, did you?
Yeah, they can run 60 kilometers an hour. They can run through shoulder high snow, which for them is ridiculous. That moose are not to be fucked with.
Yeah.
Under no circumstances should you fuck with a moose.
And the way that people die
in the UK, the most dangerous animal.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Isaac. I just did the very thing I was apologizing for earlier. let me just say that the way that people die being attacked by a moose is because they thought it was cute and they didn't think it would hurt them, and they got too close. Same with people going to Yosemite Park and taking selfies with a bison.
Dumbasses.
I'm sorry, Isaac, go ahead, please.
I think Isaac is frozen.
Oh, damn it.
I'm sorry.
And I haven't finished my commentary.
Yay! We get to see the graphic.
Yay!
All right, so Elira the
Yes.
Free, thank you for helping me with the pronunciation, says, what is Lawrence smoking? Looks nice. No need to answer. I'm just curious. But I think we should answer because I have seen a lot of people confused at that. They think that Lawrence is smoking cannabis. I'm almost certain he is not.
No, they also sometimes think it's a vape, which fuck you for thinking that I would stoop so low as to smoke a vape.
Hookah?
But no, it's a hookah.
Yeah.
Lawrence took me to a kind of a hookah bar.
It was a hookah bar, yeah.
Yeah, which I'd never been to before. So thank you for that experience. The nearest experience I ever had to that before was when I was in the United Arab Emirates. Somebody took me to a Syrian restaurant, which I don't think we even have a Syrian restaurant anywhere in the United States. But he took me to a Syrian restaurant where they would roll up a hookah for you to smoke before your food arrives. It was like the appetizer.
Yeah, it was in a lot of places it used to be like this family thing, like in India, I think. Which is, by the way, I think that's where they were actually invented, in India. So they like during meals and like during family time, they would pull out a hookah, and everyone would smoke out of it. I mean, the hookahs back then were very, very different, and very annoying too. I've only read descriptions, but they seem awful to set up. And the thing is, the tobacco was flavorless. So what they would do sometimes is actually add rose water into the base, to give it some kind of flavor.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of enjoying different flavors of tobacco and such, and being able to appreciate those. There's a number of cigar bars that I've been to that are quite nice, and I've gone. Every time I've gone, I've been with fantastic people that even if it wasn't a great experience on its own, the company would have been worthwhile. But Lawrence fits into both of those categories when he took me into the hookah bar. So again, thank you for that once in a lifetime experience. More comments to read. Elira the Free sent 20 RN Raw gift memberships.
Again? Elira. Oh my God, girl.
Outstanding.
Hugs.
Thank you so much. And then how do I say this one? Jersa Davidson, 6506 says, Aaron Ross, sorry if this has been asked before. What is your answer to the paranormal activity that is experienced by some people attributing it to spirits? I was for years a invested neo-pagan spiritualist. I was heavily involved in transcendental meditation, and I did have some what I thought were very significant paranormal experiences, more impressive, I thought, than any tale that Christians would ever tell me, except for the one guy who told me that he went up into Satan's spaceship in orbit around the Earth. That's the only one that blows me away. And I think that guy was knucking futs. But it's surprisingly easy when you have faith, when you're trying to train yourself, as the neo-pagans typically did. You want to see just beyond what your eyes can physically see. It took me a while to understand that means make shit up. But that's not how you understand it when you're into it. you're actually trying to extend your perception, unwitting that how you're deceiving yourself. And I've had a few profound experiences that unfortunately influenced my perception for decades. And it was a very painful thing to finally realize that none of that really happened. So the mind will deceive you easily. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi says, your eyes will fool you. Don't trust them.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, I can relate to that pain of letting go of something that was formative and important. But when people are talking about their personal experiences, whether of a spiritual nature or something else, I always say, I don't doubt that you experienced what you say you experienced. I doubt your interpretation of it. I want more evidence that the cause you are attributing is in fact the true cause. That's the part I'm questioning. Because one, people don't like to be called liars. That's fair. And some people are genuinely quite sincere. There are absolutely liars and cons and whatnot, but it's getting people to think about, why do you think this is the cause and the reason and the interpretation? And to make that distinction in their own heads, and to see that you can have an experience and be entirely correct and honest about what you experienced, but attribute it to something that isn't necessarily justified.
Yeah. It was an awkward situation for me to realize that there were other people involved in my two most profound experiences. And I lost contact with both of them. These were people I knew like in high school. But then, through the internet, you can find all the people you once knew. And I tracked them both down. And when I asked them, because I'm looking for confirmation at this point, I'm questioning. And so I need the other people who were there to assure me that they remember what we went through, that the same way that I remember it. And unfortunately, with both of them, they didn't remember that at all. Period. And both of them, they were neo-pagan spiritualists, transcendental meditationists. They were all of that I was, but now they are completely secular atheist skeptics. They don't believe in anything, and they have no memory whatsoever of what I remember us sharing. That was formative for me, but obviously wasn't for them.
That sucks. That really sucks.
Yeah. So that was the painful part, realizing that I am remembering something that never happened at all.
I think that the idea of the transcendental, expanding your mind and whatnot, we do naturally see patterns. We do naturally try to derive things from it. I think an experience in the mind can be formative, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. But coming to understand that it wasn't all literal it's difficult, but it potentially opens the door to more normal insights.
Yeah. All right, Tomer.
I haven't.
It wasn't me. It was Peter.
It was Peter. Tomer, come back. Oh, Tomer. We do have one comment. We do have a follow-up comment.
Okay, so Jersa Davidson 6506 said, thanks for the answer. A couple years ago, I converted to Islam and I was questioning you. Now I realize how foolish I have been. Thank you for being a part of getting me out of this. Yeah, while I appreciate the humor of, you were foolish for questioning me, that's not where I'm going with this. I used to be very, very vain and self-centered, and I've learned humility more so all the time. But I understand that I being convinced of something so thoroughly, and then realizing that you were wrong. That's awkward.
It does.
But
suck.
at least you always come out a better person for admitting that, for realizing it.
And you can be proud of yourself that you faced an ugly and difficult thing and were honest about facing it instead of just insisting that reality isn't what the evidence said and sticking with your original story. You've spent your whole life watching people do that. You had the courage not to do that. Give yourself some credit.
Definitely.
And it's never wrong to question. It's just wrong to pretend you're questioning when you're really just sitting with your fingers in your ears going, la, la. All right, Tomer.
Please.
Yes.
I haven't finished my commentary. So where was I? Yes. Hartley writes that the dominant theme is the animal's strength, which is legendary. Its mighty loins, considered the seat of strength in Deuteronomy 33:11, Psalm 69:24, which is 23, and Nahum 2:2, which is 1, and the massive muscles of its belly witness to its unusual might. Tur-Sinai takes shrir to mean hardness, and thus the strength of Behemoth lies in the solid portions of his belly. Targum takes verse 16 onward as referring to Leviathan. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he just decides, hey, they're talking about Behemoth. Let me just decide that they're talking about something completely different now.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the in the Hebrew Bible, it isn't two separate chapters. One chapter for Behemoth, one chapter for Leviathan. It's all one chapter. And like the language used at the end of this chapter in the end of the bit about Behemoth is similar to the language used at the beginning of the part about Leviathan. So it's interesting that he goes from verse 16, but yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's like one verse for Behemoth, and then everything else is about Leviathan. It's interesting way of looking at it.
Mm. Okay, on 17, its tail sways like a cedar. The Masoretic text reads, Yachapotz zenavo kemo ares. The word yachapotz, from the root chafatz, has been variously understood to mean standing up, as we see Septuagint, Vulgate, and Ibn Ezra, hardening or stiffening, according to Rashi, Kara, Rabbeinu Tam, and Tur-Sinai, bending, according to Targum and Hakham, or moving, according to Gersonides and Kimchi. Clines notes that the word is most understood as stiffens, though there's no philological evidence for this meaning. This meaning is adopted.
Remember that elephants, when they become aggressive, they really do stiffen their tail straight out.
Yeah, hippos, they kind of do that when they defecate. They like.
No, they don't. The hippos have this weird little tail that is not like a moving cedar in any respect at all. All it does.
No, but it does flip. It goes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
this.
but when it
Whenever
moves, it
they're
does that.
hitting, so that they can be the fan that the shit hits.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
And thus a colloquialism was born.
So this reading is adopted by RSV, NJB, NEB, Gordis, and Habel. Quote, when erect his tail is like a cedar, end quote. And by Clines purely on the basis of the context. The word for his tail, zenavo, has been taken to refer to the penis, a reading attested in post-biblical Hebrew, which makes the reading stiffens appropriate. Clines notes that the hippo's tail is some 20 inches in length, and so comparing it with the cedar, famed for its height and nobility, as we've seen Ezra 17, 22-24, and 31, 2-18, is strange, if not absurd. While some took the simile to be a simple error, the poet's only serious zoological error, quote-unquote, according to W.S. McCulloch, Clines writes that it is perhaps no more than a poetic exaggeration. The point of comparison must be its stiffness, since it cannot be its length, or rather it is the strength of the tail, which is used powerfully by the hippo as a paddle to scatter excrement by way of aggression or of advertising its territory.
Meanwhile, the elephant's penis is as long as mine. I mean, as long as me.
Yes. Oh God. I just had horrible thoughts. Oh yeah. No. That's yeah. They're. I mean, in fairness, elephants are not the most flexible creatures in the animal kingdom.
Not everywhere.
No, not everywhere. Their nose is incredibly flexible, but I'm thinking about the mechanics of sex and they need the reach, is what I'm saying.
I think you're thinking of tapirs.
I was just going to
Those
say
are ridiculous.
that.
Those are fucking ridiculous. They hit the ground.
No, they're prehensile.
Off the ground with your dick.
Tapirs have prehensile.
Yes. Elephants are the largest four-legged mammals, except for the bulls, which are five-legged.
Hey, you look up elephant erection on Animal Planet stuff, and you'll see they're.
I don't want to know about your porn history.
The only the only six-limbed mammal, I guess, the elephant.
Okay.
The nose. You got the nose.
Yeah. Okay. On the sinews of its thighs are close knit. The Masoretic text reads Gidei pachadav yisragu. Sorry. The word pachadav has been variously understood to refer to the testicles or to the thighs, based on the Arabic cognate afchad. Thus, Septuagint reads, and its sinews have been interwoven. Vulgate, the sinews of his testicles are wrapped together. And Targum, the veins of his testicles are entangled.
Ooh, we got veins now.
Why is this a good thing?
Testicles.
Like, why is this something that God's like, look how wonderful I made this animal? Like,
you can't even see its balls.
But look at the strength of its loins.
Try to kick it yourself. I dare
I think the problem is God's porn habits, not mine.
A variant reading of the Targum is his membrum virile and his testicles are entangled, which.
Ow.
what does that mean? No.
Not a good condition to be in.
Yeah.
Deliver the free.
Oh my God.
I actually wrote my own mock gospels when I was fighting a disease. It helped me. It was so fun. Dissing the rules of faith people gave me. Dissing the rules of faith people gave me. No.
Dissing the rules of faith.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble reading. It was fun. Dissing the rules of faith people gave me strength, because the comma was throwing me off.
Oh, okay. It was the placement.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad to hear, Elira, that you're doing well. I totally, Elira. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I was reading. When I sort of came to terms with atheism, I actually took an old children's Bible. It was that I had been like, it was a Bible, King James version, but it was like I'd been given it as a kid, and it had cutesy pictures on it. And just for my own sanity, and like I burned it and I tore off the bits and just did a quick breakdown. Here's where God is insane and kills everybody. Here's where he kills everybody again. Here's where the Jews are a thing and God is a dick to them. And just like went through the whole Bible like that. And it was very cathartic.
Speaking of which, I think that for a lot of people that in your situation, when you come out of deep religious indoctrination, inculcation, and then you listen to a show like this, I've heard that this helps people to just to hear the irreverence.
It does. Humor, and this is actually I'm speaking at the end of March, and I've decided to speak on how people change their minds, because it's a really important thing. And I know for me, humor was a huge part of emotionally disengaging enough and laughing and becoming mentally and emotionally flexible enough to reconsider positions. And humor is huge. Seriously, the old reading Jack Chick tracts really helped me more than you'd think.
Lilith, you underestimate the insane. After having him had on my show 5 times, I'm still arguing with a young earth creationist who can only read a children's Bible because he doesn't understand the normal ones.
Diluted holy water offers $9.99. Thank you. And says that's probably why evolution gave the elephants a long nose. Without it, they would have a serious weight imbalance and they would be falling on their ass. So they needed another trunk coming out of their face.
Point, counterpoint. Okay.
I haven't finished the commentary again. Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Okay. So most traditions prefer the testicles reading, comparing it with the Aramaic pachadin.
Oh, I know I do.
Of course you do, Aaron. Of course. Habel writes that the reading testicles is appropriate when we consider the tail to be the penis, hardening like a cedar. Clines, however, notes that if Behemoth refers to the hippo, then the reading testicles is inappropriate since the hippo's testicles are internal. He prefers reading thighs.
Right.
Yeah, but the thighs is usually a reference to the genitals in this like literary era.
Apparently,
history.
hippos have
May,
like,
but
they don't
like
have they don't
just
have a scrotum because
because
an,
continue.
hello.
No, continue,
Sorry.
continue.
Okay. Apparently, hippos target each other's genitals when they fight, and it's very helpful that they have mostly internal genitals.
Yeah.
Oh,
But isn't
bad
it a little
form, guys.
disturbing how these religious apologists are so focused on whether Behemoth got wood?
I mean that has kind of always been their focus about everything. It's why change habits now.
Okay, on 18, Habel suggested that the description of God making the bones and belly of Behemoth and knotting together the sinews of its thighs is probably designed to jog Job's memory about the way he portrayed God making him in the belly of his mother with bones and sinews woven together, in 10:9-11. He writes that Job and Behemoth are similar mysterious creations of God. Job had accused God of having an ulterior motive in his special creation of this mortal, namely to spy on Job and watch his ways. Now, Job must listen as Yahweh describes the way he controls special creations like Behemoth, and by implication like Job. Clines, however, writes that the point does not seem to be any identity between Job and Behemoth, but the fact that Behemoth, for all its fearsomeness, is a deliberate creation of God, just as much as Job is. He also notes that Bernard Lang observed that in Egypt, iron was known as the bones of Seth, the hippo's god. Though Habel disapproves this idea, Clines writes that it is hard to see more than a coincidence here.
Does
Habel
it say
approves this idea.
disapproves or disapproves?
No, though Habel approves, sorry.
Approves.
Habel
Okay.
approves this idea, yes. Sorry. On 19, it ranks first among the works of God. Traditionals wrote that Behemoth was created at the beginning to be the chief of all animals. Habel notes that Gordis took the phrase to mean that Behemoth was preeminent or best among the beasts, and Kubina stressed the mythological aspect by pointing out to Behemoth as a figure equivalent of Yam. Habel writes that the word first, Reshit, is in the sense of the very first or primordial, as is evident from Proverbs 8:22 and elsewhere in Job.
So
In
if you're
8:8
first, you're the shit?
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's what I thought Tomer just said.
No. Reshit. In Job 8:8, 15:7, 24, etc. He writes that the poet distinguishes between wisdom as the governing principle which God discovers or acquires in the process of making, asa, the created order, in 28, 24-27, and Behemoth as the first of the created ways or designs that El makes, asa. Wisdom is the first eternal principle, Behemoth the first created design. Thus, quote, the world apparently began with the chaos God created, personified here, as in other mythic traditions, by a monster he then overcame and controlled, end quote.
What you're reading about the Behemoth being the chief, being the best, we're talking about the biggest and the smartest. In no sense are we talking about not an elephant. We're talking about an elephant, not a hippo.
No, well, Clines writes that, so wisdom and the hippopotamus. Sorry. Perhaps we may reflect on the relation between wisdom and the hippopotamus. The nature of the hippopotamus as God's masterpiece means that it may contain some of the secret of the universe, and thus be a kind of personification of wisdom, not totally unlike the figure of wisdom in Proverbs. If it is the first of God's works, it is remarkably similar to wisdom, which was the first of his acts of long ago in Proverbs 8:22, or even the forerunner of the prodigies of long ago.
And I would agree with all of that if you said elephant instead of hippopotamus.
Yeah,
Then
but
all of that would make sense.
did the ancients know how smart elephants were?
They rode them. They worked with them regularly.
I know. Yeah. That doesn't
But the
mean
question-
egotistical people were realistic about how smart they are.
The question is whether the Israelites or surrounding it did.
Can't speak
Fair.
to that. But I just can't. Nobody looks at a hippopotamus and says, what a noble intellect.
I mean,
Maybe that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about raw power. Because
Again,
remember, you
hippopotamus versus
value
elephant?
intelligence.
But you're talking
don't
about raw
think we can-
power. Hippopotamus versus elephant?
I don't know.
it,
I don't know how that goes.
An elephant would just roll over a hippopotamus. Both in the water and on the land, because elephants love the water as well. They're
They do.
semi-aquatic. There have been elephants discovered at sea.
I could totally see them doing that. They're ridiculous. I love them. And they're adorable. And apparently they think we're cute. Like the same area of an elephant's brain lights up when it looks at us as when we look at puppies and go, oh.
I mean, we are kind of is it neonatal? Is that no, that's not the right?
That is true, yes.
Yeah. Is that the word? Neonatal?
Yep.
Well, neonatal just means newborn. Oh, well.
Neoteny is the word
neotenous.
precise word you're looking for. And yeah, that's where you retain the youthful figures or features.
Yeah, neotenous. That's probably what I should have
Like
said.
pretty tats.
Okay, its maker can reproach it with his sword. Habel writes that while the reference to Behemoth's maker drawing his sword on his creature seems incongruous, the designation of El as his maker links this line with the opening line of the unit, where Behemoth is made along with Job. He writes that the sword of El points ahead to the act of El subjugating Behemoth with hooks and rings in verse 24. The image is not of El slaying Behemoth as a chaos monster, but of threatening or intimidating it to keep it under control. Thus, quote, Yahweh announces that chaos, and presumably its evil effects, are part of the world he designed. He does not eliminate chaos or evil. His lordship involves controlling the balance between the forces of chaos and order. Septuagint reads, made to be mocked at by his angels, repeated at 41:25 with reference to Leviathan.
The way that I heard it explained was that he that made him, referring to Behemoth, can make his, meaning the Behemoth's sword, to approach unto him, and meaning the creator. So where the he's and the hims are, what they're referring to, is open to some interpretation. And the sword is supposed to refer to the tusks.
I mean, they do have the big stabby.
I mean, it depends on how you read Harbo. If the sword is a reference to the maker's sword or to the Behemoth's sword.
Yeah, and nobody's
I mean,
approaching a hippopotamus with a sword.
Well, no, but a god potentially. The idea of a god being like, my sword is mighty, blah blah blah. Like, you know.
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, if the verb in this case is like to present yourself, only his maker can present himself to its swords, although it's singular. It's a sword.
So
yeah, but the elephant has two swords of massive size protruding out of its face, and he uses them.
So
it doesn't say swords. I'm saying the verse is singular, And the verse, the verb, it, you know, the one who makes him, then there's a verb. The verb has to be referring to the one who made him.
Yes.
And then it makes more sense that the verb is talking about, it's going to do something with a sword rather than against a sword. But like I think Hebrew, if it probably would have another word, another preposition, like a prefix that would say like to the sword or with the sword. So it does make sense that it's like the one who made him has brandished, drawn his sword.
So
yeah.
So Clines has a note on the Yagesh here about Yagesh is third masculine imperfect of Nagash, Hif'il, bring near. Cherev, sword, is nowhere else the object of Nagash, Hif'il, but the sense draw a sword is by no means implausible. RV has in the margin, he that hath made him hath furnished him with a sword, introduces a note of aggression into the depiction of the hippopotamus that is otherwise quite absent. Some have
Except that
thought
it's an elephant. Hippopotamuses don't have swords. Elephants do.
Listen.
I think Tom, I think the what you're reading from it seems to use the word hippopotamus in
Whenever
terms
it
of
means to say elephant.
Clines, wait a second. Some have thought it as the hippopotamus's teeth that are supposed to be like a scythe or sword. For example, Davidson and Collier. But, quote, it is hard to think of a sword as an instrument of moving, end quote, according to Rowley. Rowley thinks it as it is, quote, the sharp chisel-edged tusks which the hippopotamus attacks its enemies when aroused, end quote.
You mean the sharp tusks that the elephant uses?
He uses hippopotamus
like
here.
swords.
He uses hippopotamus here, and that the sword is Behemoth's own, a sign of its power over its enemies. Newsome is tempted by this suggestion, but the hippopotamus does not have any enemies it must keep at bay, except perhaps for human hunters who are more afraid of it than it is of them. The simplest explanation is that the hippopotamus is so fearsome a creature that only God, who made it, can dare to approach it. So,
I think Clines that you're reading from?
And
Clines,
why is
yes.
it that hippos kill more people in Africa than any other megafauna? Because people are not afraid to approach it when they should be.
Yeah, we know they hunt them, but they are still getting killed.
And also when they're not hunting them, they come up and take selfies with the fucking things.
Yeah, I think hippos are also more violent than elephants. Like
hippos are very violent. They're very territorial, and their teeth are literally the size of bowling pins. Admire them from afar.
There was a guy in South America who bought a hippo because he's just like stupid rich. He bought a baby hippo and raised it as a pet, and he played with it in the water as a pet. And at some point in the hippo's adolescence, it decided that it wasn't a pet anymore. And why you should not have pet hippos. It ate his owner.
Yeah. I'm telling you, herbivores are not smart.
Okay.
Yeah. Herbivorous does not mean that it will not eat meat.
That's also true.
Okay, on 20, the hills bring it their produce. The Masoretic text for hills is harim, generally understood to mean mountains. Clines notes Dorm's opinion that the mountains are the habitat of the wild animals, who also, like the mountains, bring tribute to Behemoth. Gordis wrote that the tribute is the waterfalls and streams that flow down the mountains, and Kisane thinks that verse 20 is concessive, quote, though the mountains yield him food, and all the beasts of the field play there, beneath the lotus trees he lies, end quote. Rowley, following Driver Gray, thinks that they may be lower hills which the hippo could scale in search for food, and Forel regards the hills as merely the banks of river. Clines, however, writes that all these explanations are strained, and it is perhaps more reasonable to doubt a reading that connects mountains with hippos. Other emendations include Yeorim, Niles, according to Wright, or Naharim, rivers, according to Siegfried, a reading accepted by Moffat and Clines, who adds that the reference to rivers would fit well with the next colon's picture of other animals at play in the streams, where the hippo is at home. On the wild animals play nearby, the Masoretic text reads, all the animals of the field play there. Traditionals understood there, sham, to mean with him, i.e. play with it because Behemoth isn't a predator. Septuagint reads, it brought gladness to the quadrupeds in Tartarus. Habel writes that this meaning implies that a mythological or subterranean realm for Behemoth's abode. He notes that there is a euphemism for Mother Earth and the underworld elsewhere in Job, in 121 and 317. He notes that Kubina refers to the fact that tribute is offered to Yam, the Canaanite chaos monster in the Baal myth, and to the sea in the Astarte papyrus.
Which is a cooler name, Yam or Canaanite chaos monster? My next child, Canaanite chaos monster.
I mean,
Oh, they're going to love him at school. 21 through 23. Habel comments, quote, these verses locate the abode of Behemoth among the thorny lotus plants, Ziziphus lotus, the swamp reeds, and the willows. Aspects of this description were probably taken from the habits of the water buffalo or the hippopotamus. Once again, however, there are aspects of the description which are larger than life and recall the image of the dragon Tanin lying amid the streams, as we see in Ezekiel 29:3. For Behemoth is unperturbed when the river rages. Unperturbed, fuck. When the river rages or the Jordan grows violent. The beast belongs in the turbulent chaos waters of the river, Nahar, compare Judge River as the title for Yam in the Baal myth, and is at home in the raging floods. Thus, Behemoth seems to represent lordship amid the chaos waters.
And the reason for this is because of the way elephants use their trunks as snorkels.
Oh.
That's how it was that they've been found at sea.
Clever little creatures. And I know, obviously, a hippopotamus doesn't care if your water floods. They do not give a fuck. But yeah they're both
heavy.
pretty.
They can like.
Yeah, but
They're
they have to walk along the bottom. They
Yeah.
can't swim.
Oh my god, really?
Hippopotamus can't swim.
I mean, they can like push themselves up and stuff. But yeah, they're very heavy. They're very dense.
Yep.
Very heavy bones.
Just strange for an aquatic animal, but yeah.
Okay, and finally, on 24, trap it and wait, is it finally? Yeah, it is finally. Trap it and pierce its nose. The Masoretic text reads, Bemokshim yinkov af. The word mokesh generally means snare, but a snare cannot be used for piercing, according to Clines. Several traditionals, like Ibn Ezra and the Commentaries, took the phrase to mean that it opens its nostrils to breathe. Gordis, following Delitzsch and Driver Gray, suggested that mokesh is, quote, a metal tooth or trigger on which the bait was placed, end quote, which then pierced the nose of the hunted animal. Clines, however, writes that this is entirely fanciful. Ehrlich, followed by Dorm, Driver, Terrien, and Pope, suggested amending b'mokashim with bekimosim, with hooks, though chemos elsewhere always means thorns or nettles, and there's no direct evidence that it can mean also hook. Still, this meaning is favored by Clines. He also writes that the text does not say that it is impossible to capture a hippo, but alludes to the magnitude of the task by comparing it lightheartedly to fishing a piece of meat out of a cooking pot or catching a fish with a hook and line. Hartley writes that in hunting a hippo, a favorite tactic was to pierce its nose, so that it must breathe through the mouth, and then a fatal blow could be inflicted through its opened mouth. Habel notes that Pope suggested that there is a veiled allusion to the ferocious bull of El, quote-unquote, which Anath claims to have conquered along with Leviathan and Yam. He writes, however, that here the image is not the slaying or destruction of Behemoth, but its subjugation and control. God controls the Behemoth by holding its nose with hooks or barbs, just like taming a bull or a horse. Habel also notes that mouth, pe, can also mean command or authority in 39:27. And nose, af, can also mean anger and rage. Thus, quote, piercing the nose, end quote, of Behemoth may connote tempering its anger or rage, and holding its mouth may connote muzzling its authority. He further writes, quote, The polysemy of these terms invites a comparison between Job exhibiting his anger, Af, to control the wicked in verse 11, and El controlling the anger of the beast in verse 24. It is more likely, however, as Gami suggests, that the control of Behemoth implies the control and subjugation of Job, who was made along with Behemoth. They are two of a kind. The precedent for individualization of chaos and related symbols is found in Job's accusation that God is treated him like the chaos monster Yam. Precedent. Sorry. The chaos monsters Yam, Sea, and Tanin, dragon, in 7:12. Job declared with great vehemence that he would not restrain his mouth in 7:11, even though God was attempting to muzzle him, that is, place a guard over his mouth. Compare Psalms 39:2, which is one in Old Testament, as if he were a chaos monster in 7:12. Now God obliges. The control of Behemoth's nose and mouth implies the control of Job's unruly rage and tirades. If Job does not have the voice or arm in verse 9 to execute his anger in verse 11, El will control him as he does Behemoth, the great beast of chaos.
So in all of your description here, we're talking about an animal that literally does not have a nose, has separated nostrils. Whereas if you were hunting an elephant, then securing its nose would be the top priority.
So does the hippo.
No, I guess they're saying that they would make its mouth open and roar by stabbing it in the nose or in the nostrils. And
let's talk about the feature that the hippo doesn't have. The hippo doesn't have a nose.
But the ancients thought that it was a nose.
The ancients called it a nose when they were trying to stab it.
I don't know. It looks like a nose to me.
Yes, exactly.
Like if I look at it, if I pull up a picture of a hippo right now,
yes.
I go like, oh, those two little things, that's a nose.
Yes, that's it. That's on.
Well, let me just check that. Hippo. This was a hippo.
If I'm just looking up a picture of it, it looks like a nose.
I'm looking.
It's a big fucking nose.
Yeah, is it between the nostrils? Nope. There's a gap. There's a valley where the nose would be.
The thing that
Stop expecting the ancients to have a biology degree.
They're raised so that they can breathe when it's low in the water. There's no nose, which would be the appendage.
It looks like a nose.
I don't think
it looks like an inverted nose.
I don't think they.
It looks like a nose.
The same way that a vagina looks like a penis.
Oh my god. That's how a hippo screams, by the way.
Thank you, Thomas, for that rendition.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem. I think it makes sense that it's trying to talk about some crazy, first of its works creature. But yeah, there's definitely verses that this verse sounds more like elephant, and this verse sounds more like hippo, depending on especially the one with the sword.
Sounds more like hippo.
Guys.
Well, I mean, like opens its mouth and like to the raging river. I think it's more hippo than elephant.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
I can't remember which other one. Maybe. I don't know. You could argue about like the tail, the way if it's saying the tail sticks up, then I think that's more elephant. But if it's like the way it wags its tail like this, and I feel like that's quite a hippo thing.
The cedar tree is known to wag.
Well, we are talking about like Lebanese cedars. They're not.
Yeah, very different from American cedars.
They would look more like elephant tails and not like hippo tails.
Yeah, if it's talking about the penis, then it's more elephant.
If it's talking about anything, it's more elephant. And if it's talking about it opened its mouth, okay, well, I'll give the hippo. They have a big damn mouth.
I mean, like the bit about like lying in the water under the lotus and the reeds and stuff, that feels more hippo. And I think that hippos were actually present in the Jordan at one point. So
were elephants at one point.
That would be worth looking up.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like when the people who are writing this would have known about it.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's definitely whatever it is.
There is. There is. So Clines notes
The
that there is
mammalian.
no evidence of the presence of hippopotami in Palestine from the 12th to the 4th centuries BCE at Tel Kasile near Tel Aviv in northern Galilee and in the Jordan Valley.
What period?
A lot of the Bible takes place in Ethiopia, right?
No.
Arn,
Apparently.
Sable Eagle has solved the problem for you. Read the comment.
Okay. Sable Eagle says, "Isn't this part pre-flood?" That'd mean it was neither hippo nor elephant, but their common ancestor. Yes, the hippo, elephant, rhino, better known as Helephant.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think the common ancestor of a hippo and an elephant would have been like a little rodent-looking
It would have been a
Yeah,
shrew.
they're not
Yeah.
nearly as closely related as some people think, but imagine like remember creationists think you have this like megafauna with the uber DNA and then it gets trimmed down into various branches instead of, any kind of actual real evolutionary processes. They would absolutely think that the elephants and hippo were really closely related because they're big and gray, and the rhino too because they're,
I mean,
it's
I think
totally
they
the
were
same thing.
classified. Weren't hippos classified as pachyderms back in the day,
I mean,
together
maybe
with
back in the
rhinos?
day.
Or was it just rhinos and elephants were called pachyderms, not hippos?
I don't know.
I
I
might be
don't know.
wrong.
I
Okay,
only ever
but-
heard the elephant as pachyderm.
The elephant
Well,
is the only remaining living pachyderm, but the classification might have,
Change. I think pachyderm used to be.
Rhinoceros are perissodactyls. They're closely related to horses. They're common
Yeah,
ancestors.
rhinos, hippos, and elephants were and tapirs, I think as well, were called pachyderms, and then they were like, wait, these
Tapirs
aren't
are close to
related.
rhinos,
Yeah,
so they're also perissodactyls. The hippopotamus is artiodactyl, so it's got the 4 hooves. And the hippo is more closely related to the rhino than either one is to the elephant because they're both the Rasiatherians, and the elephant is. And I know you know this, but I mean the elephants are the proboscideans. They are Atlantogenodons. They are completely different lineage. They diverged from a shrew-like ancestor back in the days of the dinosaurs.
yeah. I think their closest living relative is the elephant shrew or the hyrax, which I don't remember which one of those.
The elephants, their closest relation is the hyrax, but they are also closely related to manatees.
Aww.
That's cool. No, I think so pachyderm was like this very old classification that we don't use anymore because it is, what's the word, poly.
It's racist.
But yeah, it's an old thing, and maybe Linnaeus
It was
considered
a bad
elephants, hippos, and
classification.
rhinos.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it combined things that weren't related, like elephants, hippos, and rhinos, and it literally means like thick skin. That's why they thought they should be together.
Tomer, you got any ancient Christians?
Of course I do.
Okay.
So, this is specifically for the Behemoth. So, the section of God's speech that covers Job 40, 15 through 24 is a lively depiction of the Behemoth. Most of the fathers accept the idea of a real existence of this animal, like Ephraim, Ishodat, and Origen, but especially underline in their comments on its nature the symbolic meaning that such an animal assumes. The behemoth is for some a monster created to inspire the fear of God, according to Julian of Eclanum and Chrysostom, or a representation of the devil, who must be opposed and defeated by the righteous, according to Ishodat, Philip, and Gregory. The mercy of the Creator has set a limit to the power of the behemoth, according to Gregory. God has not created such enormous beasts to show what is useful for us, but what is done according to his will, according to Chrysostom.
People really had a deep philosophical, just hit a wall whenever they encountered anything that obviously doesn't exist purely for our benefit. Is humanity always this narcissistic? What am I saying? Of course they are.
That's why our gods are.
I'm done.
All right, so I'm going to guess that we're not going to go on to
No.
41.
No.
All
We
right.
have to stop, if only to stop arguing over what a behemoth is. So no behemoth during Leviathan.
Who knew that there would be like a whole chapter that only talks about elephants and not any other thing? Oh, aside from unicorns.
We should get on next time someone who believes that Behemoth is a sauropod.
That would have
I-
been so much fun.
I need to triple.
You mean
I need to get an
other
oven
than
mitt. I need to
the
get an oven
one
mitt.
on screen?
The one on screen.
Yes. Lower row in the middle.
I can't
Behemoth.
see it.
Tomer.
Oh,
Look at
yeah.
Tomer's name today.
Yes.
Arn,
All right then.
considering that name, I think you should ask Tomer how many of his Bible experts were biologists.
I
Probably
have no
none,
interest
but
in
like
that argument.
they have sources, you know.
We can trace the history of an idea while realizing that it is still a very silly idea. But
We can't know
going
for
to-
sure. We can't know for sure. A lot of modern biblical scholars think it's a hippopotamus for some reason. Some think it's an elephant. And then there are others that say that it wasn't trying to describe necessarily a real animal. It was just describing like this chaos monster, and it just happens to be that it aligns with both elephants and hippos in different ways.
Yeah, we
And
can't talk about Chaos
no-
Monster until the next episode.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll go brush up on my
sorry.
ancient Babylonian
Yeah,
Tiamat. And
because I think
Okay.
there is someone in the comments who thinks that Behemoth is a monster, but it also believes that it's a real thing. So
Okay.
whatever.
Well, I mean, Leviathan was a monster too, and they thought,
Yeah.
and a lot of people thought they were gonna, get to eat Leviathan at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are I know people that do.
Right.
Right? They're gonna sit in huts made of salted Leviathan skin and then eat the flesh of Leviathan.
Yeah.
The freshly slaughtered one.
The freshly not the one that's been in salt
Or
for
maybe both.
several
I don't remember.
millennia.
Maybe they'll have pickled and schmaltz, because pickled herring and schmaltz herring. They'll have like.
Oh my god! All right, well, I'm getting hungry.
Yep.
Maybe
So,
like a
Lawrence,
giant
are there any
snack.
final comments?
Yeah, the final comment is join the Discord, my Discord. That's the only Discord that exists. And
Behold!
absolutely go subscribe to the Bold Network.
Behold!
I got a video coming out soon. Just finished the script. And it's going to be about the Synod of Rome in 382. And that might not sound that interesting, but I promise it is.
Okay. Looking forward to it. As I've enjoyed all of your really in-depth analyses in your documentaries. So
Thank you. I appreciate
keep
that. This
that
one's
up.
not quite documentary length, but it is. It's going to be fun. The next documentary one that I'm going to get back to working on is the Melchizedek video. That's the next really big one.
Excellent. All right. Thank you
All right.
much, y'all.
Not yet, Arn. Got one more thing for you to read.
Oh, Elira
my
the Free sent 10
Wow.
Iron Rock gift memberships.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And other than that, Elira also said she loved Lilith and whether or not Lilith had a channel. So there's a link to Lilith's
I saw
channel.
that. I know I have to get back to it. I'm sorry. Life got really crazy for me.
Life
Not gonna-
is. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Life. Gonna life.
Tomer,
Anyway, L'chaim.
get on with
What?
it.
With what?
Did you know that Elira means my god is Ra?
Good night.
That's beautiful.